climax. Oh, there it is.
Now recording.
Recording.
Okay, here we go. Five, four, three, two. Welcome to Mr. Podcast with Claude and Justin.
Hey,
We're back
woo,
talking
we're back.
about, yeah, have you been waiting eagerly for us? Now
Someone
we're
has
here. And we're going to be talking about the three Captain America Marvel movies.
the three Americas.
First Avenger, Winter Soldier, and Civil War.
Ooh,
All right, Justin. Well, we've done our Scarlet Witch, our One Division
yeah,
podcast.
Scarlet Witch Vision.
Yeah, and so we've talked a bit about kind of where we were coming in to the MCU. So in the interim, you've been catching up on one or two of the movies.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 8,
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's all the same, right? Once you go Marvel, you just keep going and you never stop. And
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty soon you realize that all that you're watching or thinking about is a Marvel property. And
All
that's how
roads
they
lead to
want it.
Marvel. Yeah, well, that's how Disney want it. They want anything you're interested in to be a Disney property.
Yeah, they love that. And if there's something you're interested in that isn't a Disney property, they would like to buy
Just,
that thing.
just wait until they buy it, and then it gets big enough, and then everything will be on Disney Plus.
Pretty soon, they
Yeah.
will own the Lost Lowdown, I'm sure.
Well, if we're lucky.
If we're lucky. Exactly. Yeah. Like going into that Marvel world, it really is like it's a distinctive thing. I think I think they're pretty reliable for like a certain level of entertainment value. You know, even though the movies are different, I think they all deliver on a certain basic level that, um like a movie like Tenet, for all of its qualities and all of its uniqueness, like doesn't really deliver on. So anyway, I do appreciate that. It's like you
Yep.
go in, it's like you're gonna get a story, you're gonna get some characters that are, at least somewhat interesting.
Yep.
They have like a defined arc, and you're gonna get, some villains and some conflicts. Usually there's like secondary villains, like they have kind of a style. A lot of times there's a reveal about the villain that happens
Mm-hmm.
late in the game. That seems to be a recurring theme. Either like the villain's got some secret, or the villain isn't who you thought they were, or
Mm-hmm.
like there's various variations on it throughout the movies. But they go for that a lot, and I mean they did that in the Avengers movies too. um, but yeah, it's I'm like really late to the party, but I think I kind of get it. It's not it's not something that I think would ever be like my favorite thing in the world, but it is really appealing. And
Mm-hmm.
if you got some time, a lot of time, on a weekend or whatever, you can just like zone out, and it's almost like, like watching the Harry Potter stuff, or Lord of the Rings or something. It's like entering a world.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
just kind of live in that world, and you get all these crossovers. You see all these characters from one thing and another thing, and you always get these teases at the end. It's like the movie was about this, but here's this other thing. Like, you want to come back for more. This whole
Mm-hmm.
like they will return.
Yeah.
Um, like, don't worry. Though, yeah, at the end of Ant-Man and the Wasp, it was a question mark, because, they didn't want to be too definitive about something that was a cliffhanger, I guess. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Because of Yeah, because of the blip or
The
whatever.
departure. Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. Because yeah, that's the an Ant-Man stuck in the quantum realm. So yeah, the fates of the characters are very much uncertain, as opposed to most of the other movies where like they end the movie like more or less
Hmm.
okay and therefore available for another movie.
Yeah.
So that was kind of unique, because that was part of the Infinity Stone Endgame Infinity War like saga, and that, I mean, that was a big deal, obviously. um
Hmm.
you see, when you watch these older ones, you really see them like slowly building that thing, and so like if you were
Oh yeah.
following them, it was probably fun to be like, oh yeah, this
Hmm.
thing, Infinity Stones, ooh ooh, Tesseract, ooh
Yeah.
ooh.
I mean, that's one of the levels of that the movies reward you on is those details, and the reveal. So like if you were following these movies when they came out, you get to the end of phase one and they have the first Captain America movie, the first Avenger, and they introduce this blue energy box called the Tesseract,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just a MacGuffin, and it's just a thing we've seen in a dozen other, a million other stories, and it doesn't seem that it's interesting enough for the plot
Yeah.
and for you to understand. It's basically Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's
Mm-hmm.
really a similar story, except Indiana Jones is Steve Rogers,
Right.
and he's trying to stop a Nazi power from our leader from getting like unlimited power through
Yeah.
the same idea of like power from the gods, right?
Right.
So and that's one of the things I like about it because it's a familiar story that's kind of done really well.
Yeah.
um, but when you come back to the first Avengers movie, and the last time you saw the Tesseract, like it had fallen, into the sea, and then it got sort of recovered by Howard Stark. But to see it, in the beginning of Avengers with Loki, or Shield is experimenting on it, um, and then to go through the whole story, like, okay, that's actually there's something actually inside there. Like the reason it has this particular power that we've seen this whole time is because the space stone is powering this thing, and that's why all of this power we've seen it do has to do with space, and it's not even a question you're really asking of like when somebody gets shot with the weapons Hydra made, in the first Avengers movie they like vaporize, and you think, oh well, it's just a lot of energy or something, but even what happens to Red Skull at the end, if like what they showed in Endgame on the planet where the Soul Stone is, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that whole
Yeah. Vormir,
reveal.
I want to say.
Yeah, yeah, that whole reveal of like, oh, it didn't just like disintegrate him when
Yeah.
he touched it. It actually transported him
It
somewhere
looked like a
else.
transport,
Hmm.
even when I saw it, and I didn't even realize that that's who that was. That was something I learned online. Oh, that's who that rando character was. It was like, okay, there's this guy
Again,
here.
yeah, when you're watching it and they go to Vormir, and by that point in the movie you're really invested in like these stones and what's going to happen, and Thanos, and is he going to get all this stuff, and then like who shows up? Red Skull. You're
Yeah.
like, how did you enter this story? Like the last time we saw you're vaporized or whatever,
Right.
and yeah, that it's cool to have these threads that they pick back up, and then have all these mysteries that they're planning, and then they pay off, and the same thing with all the other sort of Infinity Stone containers. Like even that concept is cool, that like there's all these housing units for the stones to kind of manipulate them and transport them and stuff, but there's a reveal that inside of them is the actual thing that's important. So yeah, it's interesting to see that those kind of things play out. But like you're saying, when you watch him not in chronological order, it becomes like the numbers, on Lost, where like you get to see what these things mean and interpret them in a different way because you're seeing it, from a different chronological perspective.
Definitely, yeah. Like having already watched all that Avenger stuff and then going back to the first Captain America, is like, oh, the Tesseract. I know what that
Mm-hmm.
is, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as much as I can, I guess. Like what the sort of endpoint is for it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah. So yeah, there was a lot of that. There was a lot of that, and so it did make it seem less like a MacGuffin. I think if I saw it when it came out, I probably wouldn't have cared about it that much.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like anything that is gonna play a pivotal role in all the movies for 20 years.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And
They really
I
did
just
go
think
back to it a lot.
they just the whole Infinity Saga is just a really well done, you know, series of stories about this central idea. And I think for what they how it actually had to be done, dozens of movies with dozens of different crews, and you know what I mean, like just the
Yeah.
logistics of that, and this and then the writing and all that stuff, for it to be as consistent as it is and to have this overall story you can follow of these Infinity Stones getting placed strategically, and Thanos planning in the background. He's waiting to strike because there's all these theories about like why did he wait to send Loki in the first Avengers movie when he did, right? Like he's biding his time, and a lot, some of the theories are basically like there were other powerful beings that could have been in the way. Like Odin is one of them. Like
Mm-hmm.
he basically happens to have waited till Odin was dead before he tries to take Earth and the Infinity Stones. And there's some
Mm-hmm.
other characters like that. So it makes it really makes Thanos probably the best villain in, you know, modern pop culture history,
Mm-hmm.
like it's like Darth Vader and then Thanos, I feel like,
Mm-hmm.
and he's got a lot of the qualities that I like about, they obviously tried to humanize him a lot and make him sympathetic a lot and all that kind of stuff. And some of that stuff rubbed me the wrong way a bit, but I'm the kind of person who likes the serialized aspect of the story, and just the idea of like all of these different pieces that are shown in these different movies are kind of happening at the same time, and you've got this villain who's like got this plan, and and the way they introduce him, and just slowly like making his presence more meaningful, right? So when he actually finally shows up, I mean, that's what, like, I don't have you seen uh the last Justice League movie?
No, no, I haven't seen any of those.
Well, you'll get to them soon, and you'll have a lot to say. But anyway, I was just gonna make a point about one of their
That's a
main
DC thing,
villains.
right?
Yeah, it's a DC thing. So
Yeah,
yeah, one of
yeah,
their
yeah.
main villains is like introduced in the opposite way, where like there's just they just are on screen, and we're supposed to care about them, versus like what Thanos did to even spark Tony Stark's response, right? Like so many of the actions that he does in some of his movies are directly in response to like this pending doom that's happening and that he feels. So it's interesting just to how well they really tapped into that and didn't just make it be some other type of plot for these movies that would have been fine, but didn't really showcase that kind of like detail of this master plan and how much it's like actually affecting these characters. Because even Tony says that he's like Dan. When he's in Infinity War, when he's talking to Doctor Strange, he's like, Thanos has been in my head like for a long time. Like he's been affecting what I'm doing. The Ultron thing was about that too. Like thinking like I have to go. Even in Civil War, right? Like he is so freaked out about his inability to save everybody that he goes, sort of too far in order to protect, and he's willing to take a chance because he is sort of convinced that nothing there's no cost too great to save everybody, right? And that's what I love about Civil War. Again, like the storytelling is so well done in that the movie is about this film and better than it has to be for that idea to be entertaining. Because if you just throw 15 of the best superheroes in the same movie, people are going to watch it. But
Yeah.
if you actually make the plot really interesting and make it make the audience have complex feelings about them fighting each other, because they understand like where the characters are coming from, and they all are, are fighting from some principle stance, or some belief about what they should be doing. And it's almost like a peek behind the curtains in the Avengers, right? Of like, when you see the team break down, and you see how they react to everything. It's like the anti-Avengers movie where they have problems in the beginning and they get over their problems and they become a team. And this one's like, well, they're a team and then they have some problems and they break up. So it's like it makes this natural like symmetry in the whole story of the Avengers,
Mm-hmm.
and then that affects the rest of the movies going forward of like, yeah, well, the Avengers can't just save the day anymore because some shit happened. Like they're
Yeah.
not always just around hanging out ready to stop any crazy thing that's happening.
Right.
But overall, man, the Captain America movies are probably my favorite three, character movies. I mean, I really, really like the Iron Man movies, but I mean, Captain America: Winter Soldier is okay. Civil War is my favorite MCU movie for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That is hands down my favorite. Winter Soldier is probably number three or four. Uh, when I first saw Captain America: First Avenger, I hated it.
Ha!
I didn't care about this character. I thought the story was boring. I thought the pacing was too long. The action wasn't that interesting. I didn't care about the Tesseract. I didn't care about Red Skull. It felt like there was so much on screen that I couldn't connect to. And I just kind of wrote the movie off, and that was like one of the first MCU movies that I was like, oh well, I don't like this, like, this isn't good.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Avengers movie comes out, and I get to really see like what I would call real Cap, like at his prime, like doing the exact thing. It's when Cap becomes Cap, really, for the modern age.
Right.
And It's awesome and it's great. And I fell in love with this character. And I'm like, so then when I went back and watched First Avenger, I was like, oh wow, I like this because now I'm plugged in. Now I care about this character. Now I care about where he came from, and now I care, And then when I saw Winter Soldier, and it's like, okay, wow, look at this great reveal of what happened to Bucky Barnes, and then this whole relationship between the two, and like that played out really well. And then the movie's just slick as fuck, man. It's such a cool movie. And then yeah, Falcon shows up and he's badass, and then you get to explore Black Widow character some more, when she's not like, quipping and being smarter than everybody in the room. It's like, oh, when shit hits the fan, it's just like, and her world gets turned upside down. Like she has a pretty good arc in that movie too.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
uh and um and so yeah, I was pretty won over by Captain America as a character by that point. And then Civil War comes out, and it's like the Avengers versus the Avengers. All these characters I've come to know and love are gonna like have a problem that they're gonna fight it out. How is this gonna work? Because that's something that I think is inherent to comic books, and it's what fans want to see. They want to see those matchups of their heroes against their other heroes,
Mm-hmm.
and the MCU knows that, and they know they have to have creative ways for that to happen organically. And I thought like they did a great job with that in the Avengers movie, the first one,
Yeah.
where we see Hulk and Thor fight, we see Iron
Hmm.
Man and Thor, fight. We see what those powers look like against each other, and that's like the icing on the cake of seeing like fully realized superhero characters in movies and stuff. So yeah, with Civil War even up in the ante on that, on that concept of okay, now they're going to go further, and the way it progresses, I think it's just so tightly ratcheted. There's that moment in Civil War where they're fighting, and Cat and Hawkeye are fighting, and they're like, wait, we're still friends. Like, what are we actually doing here? Like, I know we're fighting, and there's a reason we're fighting, but I'm not actually actively trying to kill. Are you trying to kill me? Like, what's actually happening here? But they're still like fighting each other, but they're not like trying to kill each other. But
Hmm.
then like Scarlet Witch shows up and like I think she like blasts Hawkeye or something, and she's like, "You're pulling your punches." It's like let's take this seriously. And then like a few scenes later, something blows up and somebody almost gets hurt, and now it's like, okay, the gloves are coming off. Now we're actually gonna fight because now I'm pissed, and now it's like you're trying to kill me.
Hmm.
And it just escalates and escalates and escalates until the fucking ending, man. The brutal, brutal, brutal fight with Iron Man and Captain America at the end is like it's gruesome. It's like dark. It's as dark as Marvel gets. To have those two guys going that far, and the way they depicted it, so yeah. Anyway, that's that. Civil War is just my favorite because there's just to make a movie work the way it works is a really specific set of skills. Um,
Hmm.
it's not a typical movie. So, what did you think of the Captain America series?
Yeah, I do want to talk about Civil War. Um, I have a few things to say about that movie. But let me just go through the first two first.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, my experience was very much similar to what you described, except that I saw all the Avengers movies before I saw one of these Captain America movies. So Captain America, I don't know. Personally, for me, I didn't actually even like Captain America in the first Avengers movie. Maybe I had more of that experience within the Avengers movies. Like that character grew on me over the course of the Avengers movies. By the end, I was a
Mm-hmm.
fan, but at the
Mm-hmm.
beginning, I thought he was kind of boring. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so going
Which is what I
back,
thought in the first Captain America movie. I
yeah,
thought he was kind of boring.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So I was already invested. So going back, like the first movie didn't bother me. I do think it's less interesting than the other two.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I enjoyed the 40 stuff. There's a few like little things I have to say about it. The first is the title. Like, why is it called the First Avenger? I don't understand. Like the first Iron Man movie is called Iron Man. The first Thor movie is called Thor. The first Incredible
Mm-hmm.
Hulk and only Incredible Hulk movie is called The Incredible Hulk. Why isn't it just called Captain America?
All the Captain America movies have subtitles.
Because they have to have subtitles.
They
I don't know.
all
I reject the title, especially because I just watched. I mean, there's like no hint of Avenger going on in the movie. He shows up in 2011 and joins the Avengers, but they already exist. It's just a weird thing to say. It doesn't really like
well,
he does
Captain
form a
America,
team, but that's not
but
the
yet,
Avengers.
well, Captain America is supposed to be like the original Avenger. So and the way the Avengers movie is set up, like that's why it's pivotal when Steve takes control. They become, Fury puts the team together, but it's not until Cap takes control of the team and leads them that they're actually like really the Avengers doing the avenging. You know what I mean? I think the title comes from all the titles come from the comics, so there's probably some reason, from the comic story about that probably answers the question more.
Okay. Yeah, it just doesn't seem to fit the movie, you know. And we just watched Captain Marvel where like at the end they give a little origin for the Avengers, you know. And it's like in the 90s. So it's like there's no way he was an Avenger, you know, before, you know, like even within the so
Well,
yeah,
they're
with
not. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The Avenger. I guess it's a semantics thing where there's the Avenger Project Fury dreams up, right? But I think the title is saying even before that there was a person who was avenging, and that
yeah,
person
but
was
like
Captain
it's like a
America.
lowercase Avenger, you know? Like I don't know. It's not the Avengers, you know? It's like he was doing stuff, but it's like
I
I
think
don't
you're
know.
getting caught up on a particular. Yeah, I would trust that they know why they're calling it that, and like they know it better than anybody, and that probably the comic story is maybe the reason. But we can
Yeah.
Google that.
Yeah. I tried. I didn't. I think you're right that it's a comic book thing, but I just think within the movie it's weird, and it would have been fine for me to leave the colon off, but whatever. It's a very small point, but it did bug me a little bit.
Well, this is saying he's called the First Avenger because he was just living and avenging before any of the other Avengers.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Sure.
it's just a thing.
Yeah, I understand. Okay, so second thing that's like kind of bothered me a little bit is so Howard Stark is in this movie, and um, let's see. So this is made in 2011.
So wait,
Um,
did you like the movie?
did I like the? Oh, you want to? Sorry, yeah, I'm just going into like nitpicks.
Yeah. Why
Um,
don't you tell me what you thought about the movie
I'm all about
overall?
nitpicks. Yeah, no, I did enjoy the movie. You know, in sort of the broad strokes, like I like the arc. I had no idea that. I mean, the effects were weird, but I had no idea that like he was like tiny before, and like,
Mm-hmm.
but he had heart, you know, and that's what made him
Mm-hmm.
great, you know. Like, and that's why he could get the power and be trusted because like he
Mm-hmm.
understands like what it means and like so he's like more you know like I think the
Mm-hmm.
way they built the character arc it's very like straightforward in a way but it definitely
Mm-hmm.
worked um
It's a
and
classic hero story. Yeah, he gets
yeah,
his magic
yeah, and I
elixir and
really
becomes a
enjoyed
hero.
that
Yeah.
aspect like the way that sort of came together um and uh where it was like, yeah, like we're gonna choose you to be this like secret project
Mm-hmm.
and the way it sort of developed and you know the Hydra origin stuff
Mm-hmm.
sort of origin stuff I guess um was kind of helpful to me and I think the Bucky relationship too like the stuff they do in the first movie kind of helps with that
Mm-hmm.
um, because you know because they do like shoehorn in a flashback in Winter Soldier to like make a certain point, but I think the stuff from the first movie was like more effective overall for like really
Mm-hmm.
establishing like what it means that he comes back, you know, in the next one.
Oh, for sure. That's all that's yeah. That's all that's doing.
So I think that stuff really worked. You know, he's like there from the beginning, and yeah, to really appreciate that saga, I think it
Mm-hmm.
is like absolutely essential. Um, I mean, yeah, the Red Skull stuff is kind of ridiculous. You know, it was amusing in a comic booky way, I guess, or
Mm-hmm.
Indiana Jones ish or something um yeah, I think I think that's what I enjoyed the most. And you know, this is the thing I would say about um I mean, it's just like I said about Tenet. You know, Tenet is like Avengers Endgame, but without the characters. You know, I do think like these movies overall are pretty good at establishing characters,
Hmm.
and that's probably the thing that I enjoyed the most about the first movie. The actual story was a bit like I don't know, like I've seen stuff like this before, sort of. Maybe not exactly this ridiculous, but in this general realm. And yeah, it's sort of MacGuffin based and so on. Um, Another thing I did like about it was the period where he's doing like a publicity tour. You know,
Yeah.
he's just doing like stage shows and stuff.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like that was a lot of I don't know. I really liked that idea that like they didn't actually want him to go fight. Like they wanted him to just like promote the
Yeah.
military and stuff. You know, like
Hmm.
there's some stuff like that in Hunger Games. You know, like use them for like propaganda. So like I thought that was really interesting. They didn't do that much with it, but I enjoyed that part of the movie as well.
Yeah.
Um, uh, I think that stuff sort of falls by the wayside, but it does explain why like people know who that is. I guess
Yeah.
um,
Exactly.
he's like a
Exactly.
public figure, you know, which like you can't say that for all of the Marvel characters.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of them are you know more secretive or reclusive or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, yeah, I think you know overall like it was to me it was solid. It was a solid. I think that's the other thing that sort of bugs me about it. And uh I uh I you know I kind of felt this way about Doctor Strange too. Like you know I think origin stories are always like a little bit tedious.
Hmm. Hmm.
You know, there's just a thing. I mean, Batman Begins has this too. It's like there's something about the origin story where it's like, you know, like there's like a formula to it, and I feel like it's hard for that to be the best version of that character. You know, it's like I really want to see the character just like fully formed. You know, um, I
But
don't
you really
necessarily.
don't. Like, I feel the same way you feel. Like, that's why I love sequels, because it's usually
Yeah,
where the character is at a, stronger level or bigger
yeah,
challenges. But without the tedious beginning of the character arc, and then like you won't really care about the characters overall. So it's
yeah,
like it's like a necessary evil, um, to and I think that's what was boring me when I first saw the first Avenger, was just that the origin story plot points. But it's like I said, once you care about the character later and you come back to it, it's a lot more interesting,
yeah,
because you're actually caring about it. And I feel like the first Matrix is like that. Like I like Matrix 2. There's better action sequences because they're bigger and crazier, but the Matrix 1, like when you rewatch that, like there's a lot of slow parts where they're building character, you know. And so yeah, I feel like the first Avengers like that too, where and yeah, Batman Begins is like that too. I felt the same
yep,
way. Batman Begins just felt slow and boring, and there's some really good stuff in it. But then Dark Knight comes out, and it's like, oh well, this is what I really want to see. You
yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I do agree like it's kind of essential though. So, you know, you can't really dispense with it for
Hmm.
where they go. Um but yeah, it always seems like the second one is where things really get going.
Yeah.
Um uh but so yeah, so that's my general thoughts. But I think I have a couple more nitpicks about the first movie.
Hmm.
um, that I just have to say to someone. Um,
Okay.
uh, right. So, like I thought it was interesting that, like Hydra is like, they're like basically Nazis, but like they're like too evil for the Nazis. Like they go rogue from the Nazis.
Yeah, basically, yeah, they're the science division of the Nazi regime, and their leader just decides like, we're not going to follow Hitler. He's too limited in what he's trying to do,
Yeah.
and Schmidt is like goes rogue. Yeah,
Yeah, it's an interesting push pull to me because it's like they're worse than Nazis, but what they actually do isn't as bad as what the Nazis did. So I don't know. It's just a weird uh it's a weird thing to kind of invoke Nazis, but then to kind of dodge it a bit. I don't know. It felt to me like they were a little. I kind of get it in a way. It's weird to like go all in with Nazis. In a superhero movie, it starts to feel more, I don't know, more like something, Quentin Tarantino would do or something, like putting Nazis in a like quasi.
yeah,
Uh,
but that's from the comic source, right? Of like the origin of this character as a Nazi fighter.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I get it, but it just seems to me like they were a little hesitant to like really feature the Nazis, and so it seemed like they created this group. I mean, maybe that's from the comics too,
Yeah,
but like
it's from the comics.
splintered away from the Nazis, like specifically.
Yeah, because they ultimately survive the Nazis, so they have to splinter away.
Right.
It's like yeah, it's basically like the idea of like there's a bigger threat than just Hitler,
Yeah,
and
even
it's
though like
Hydra.
what Hitler actually did was much worse than what they
Well,
did in this movie.
what Hydra wants is the same thing. They both want control, and Hydra wants to kill millions and millions of people in order to get that control. So I think
Sure,
it's
sure.
yeah, they just haven't
But
done
they
it yet.
failed, whereas the Nazis succeed. So I don't know. That's what's like hanging over the movie to me. It's like
Well, they
couldn't you do
haven't.
better with the actual Nazis?
Well, but what do you mean they only fail like in the future movies? Because Hydra, keeps going, keeps splintering off, and they think they kill it in the first movie, but they're
Yeah,
not
yeah,
really.
yeah. Sure, 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 sure. But I'm just saying that like they didn't stop the Nazis from doing the Holocaust. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, wow. Oh, you're making a different point. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's just like yeah, they stopped Hydra, but like what about the actual Nazi? Like that's where it seems weird to me. It's like I don't think you're supposed to really think about that. But that's why it's like they invoke the Nazis, but they also run away from it a little bit. I don't know. It felt to me like there was a tension there about like how much they wanted to really acknowledge the Nazis.
Yeah, but I thought there's a whole montage where Captain America is he's defeating the Nazis and he's almost single handedly winning the war for them. Right, doing that whole like montage when he first becomes Captain America.
Uh wasn't that Hydra stuff?
I don't think so. I thought that was so later he when he figures out where the Hydra bases are, he goes after those. Maybe I'm remembering wrong, but I thought in that montage it was because it was all about look, America has a new hero in the war, and um, see if I can find it. Get the video here. Uh,
Okay, right. So he does a tour, does a publicity tour.
oh, you know what? I'm thinking of the it was the marketing stuff they were shooting when he
Okay,
was
the
doing the
marketing stuff.
films.
Yeah.
When he was doing the films, yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. I mean, even if he was attacking Nazi bases, I mean, I don't think it's MCU canon that the Holocaust didn't happen, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so like that's all I'm saying. It's like it's weird how like that's not like mentioned or if, I don't know. It's like it's weird to bring it up but not to acknowledge like the big thing that I don't know. So yeah,
Yeah.
anyway,
Well, I think time wise, the Holocaust has already happened when he becomes Captain America, right?
oh, okay.
Let me
Okay.
see. The movie take.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think he's supposed to be in 1945 because I think they're supposed to are timing all this stuff with sort of the
Okay.
historical end of the war.
Okay. Okay. I see. Yeah, the thing at the end is in 1945. It does say that.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think the idea is like the real Nazis are doing crazy experiments and they fictionalize a unit called Hydra, and then other people are doing science, and then this Erskine guy creates a formula, um, and that becomes obviously a threat because you don't want
Hmm.
super soldiers in your army, in the opposing enemy's army and stuff, and but yeah, I see what you're saying, but I think it makes sense. It's kind of like once the Red Skull becomes a bigger threat, then they have to like try to make Captain America,
Hmm.
and they lose the formula and all that stuff. But yeah, oh, sorry, was it the end of your the nitpick?
That was the end of that
That was
nitpick.
it.
Yes, I
Okay.
do have another one, but yeah, that was the end of that one.
Um, I was gonna mention something about one of the things that I find interesting with the movie is he actually once he becomes Captain America, like he actually doesn't do any training. It's actually kind of interesting. Like there's
Hmm.
no training montage of him, learning martial arts,
Yeah, yeah.
figuring out how to use his
I mean, he jumps
power.
out of the chamber and he's already doing stuff.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
it was like immediate.
Yeah. So I find it interesting that they don't really have that common plot point of like seeing him
Yeah,
use
I
his powers.
agree. A
And
lot of the other Marvel movies have that.
and I think one of the reasons that is because they have this whole story about how he's being withheld from actually going into the field, right? Into
Hmm.
the battlefield, and the guy in charge doesn't believe in him because
Right.
if they had a training montage scene where Captain America is super strong and fast, and the soldier he shows is, then I feel like that guy can't play that same role of like holding him back. He would want to send him in,
Yeah.
but it has to be Steve Rogers' choice to go in, and the character is better when he's like, breaking the rules for the right reasons. So it works better. But I was just thinking about that. I was like, why isn't there a training montage scene? And that's one of the reasons I was thinking like, because then it would undercut what he ends up doing in the battlefield when he first rescues the soldiers, and when we see him in action, for real, and we're like, oh wow, this is what this guy could do. We say, what did he save, like 700 soldiers or something in a night. um but I like how they kind of slowly show what he's capable of, and one of the things I've always found interesting about his power, with this serum, like you were talking about before, why he was chosen is there's something about his goodness or his spirit or his character that is like what what empowers him. And it's one of those things where the more he's fighting for what he knows is right against bigger odds, the like stronger he becomes. So he almost has this like power leveling power. Is it's like his power is that he can gain power almost or something,
Hmm.
because he goes from fighting these guys in the First Avenger, and hitting really hard and doing crazy stuff, but like to fighting Thanos,
Right.
who has impenetrable skin and is like 10 feet tall and has like armor made of alien metals, and you know what I mean, and like Captain
Yeah.
America is holding his own, not to mention wielding Mjolnir, channeling lightning,
Right.
beating armies, so he's a he seems like a boring character on the surface, but that unique quality that makes him Captain America, that makes him Steve Rogers, is really interesting, because it's this like he can't help but be good, and there's something attractive about that, like seeing a character versus like Tony Stark, who really wants to be good, and tries to do
Hmm.
good things, but he has a completely different set of reasonings why he's doing what he's doing,
Yeah.
and yeah. So anyway, I find that um, arc for Steve Rogers over the course of all the movies, but particularly these three, really interesting. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Going from that simple premise of like he was a little guy who no one ever believed in, but he had a heart bigger than anybody else, and like then he gets some power, and like okay, now this is his character, and he's got that quality all great heroes have, right? Where it's like they're gonna win, they're just gonna win.
Hmm.
you know like if you're a bad guy, you're gonna lose because you don't have what this person has, and
Right.
I think the movie does a really good job of like setting that up.
It's that tenacity. He's got that thing
Hmm.
that's like, I can do this all day.
Yep, I can do this all day. Yep.
So yeah, yeah. No, I agree. I mean, yeah, I definitely got that in the Avengers movies, and if you follow that all the way
Hmm.
to the end, like he does get a pretty crazy arc,
Hmm.
where he gets like go back in time and live a life and stuff, and come
Hmm.
back. So yeah, it's a lot, and yeah, I think even within the Avengers movies it developed, but you can see sort of the same thing happening in parallel in these movies, and
Hmm.
it's I think it's easier to appreciate when you know where it's going. Basically, I think
Hmm.
if you just watch this movie by itself,
Yeah.
you might have the reaction like you had.
Yeah, and I, for obviously a lot of people, when they were watching these movies for the first time, they were coming from knowing the characters from the comics. So,
Right,
ideally having a similar, like, being more plugged into what's happening, because they know the characters and the stories.
right, right.
I thought Agent Carter is really good in the movie. First
Yeah.
Avenger. She has that thing that like a really good James Bond uh, girl has, where like she reminds me of Ava Green in Casino Royale,
Mm-hmm.
where she just shows up and she's just like, yeah, I'm as interesting as anybody else. Yeah, I don't care if you're James Bond or if you're Captain America. Like I'm a really interesting character. There's something about how the actress plays those roles where it's just like they bring gravitas to whatever, and I feel like Scarlett Johansson does that with Black Widow, and they bring this extra quality to an otherwise tertiary character,
Right.
and kind of make an impression bigger than you might just imagine from reading it in a script, reading the character in a script.
Yeah, yeah. So that I mean that character got a TV show, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I had no idea what that was. Like I had heard of it, and I was like, I don't know what this is about. I don't
Mm-hmm.
understand. Um, but yeah, no, I agree. I agree. And when they go back, to the character in the future, like it has more weight. Also, just like the Bucky stuff,
Yeah.
because you see this part,
Mm-hmm.
these early years, because she had, stuff to do with Shield later, and they revisit that in
Mm-hmm.
uh, I I
Civil
think it's
War.
Ant Man. Anyway, I'm getting confused about what it is, but yeah, no, I agree. I think that that part was better realized than it could have been.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's definitely the story of a lot of this stuff. It's like this kind of a standard thing that could be, just okay, but
Yeah.
they really do get good actors for these Marvel movies. I mean, it's kind
Mm-hmm.
of
They get the
ridiculous.
best actors.
Yeah, they bring in Stanley Tucci to play this like one-off
Mm-hmm.
part, and he dies early in the movie, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, okay, and but that's, I mean, that isn't that crazy. For if you watch enough Marvel
Yeah.
movies, you realize like, oh, they just bring in
Yeah.
super famous people
Well,
to play
you know,
sometimes really small parts.
Robert Redford showing up in
Yeah,
Winter Soldier was pretty crazy.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
he
definitely.
doesn't do a ton of movies.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I hadn't seen him in movies for a really long time. I don't
Mm-hmm.
even remember the last movie I saw Robert Redford in. So yeah, that was a shocker.
Mm-hmm.
Um he does get a significant role though. It's not quite as
Yeah.
small as Stanley Tucci's, but yeah, yeah, no, that was. But yeah, I kept being surprised, like, oh, you're in this movie. Like, it's like I just
Mm-hmm.
recognize everybody. It's crazy
Yeah.
um, how they do that. Um, yeah, so it's, I don't know. This is so the my next nitpick is like vaguely related to that. So they have Howard Stark, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Howard Stark. So I don't know like the inside, whatever they would say, but I'll just say like, okay, this movie came out in 2011. So the actor who plays Howard Stark in the movie was 33 at the time.
Okay.
I don't know how old the character is supposed to be, but I mean, he's got a company, he's making stuff. I feel like he can't be too far from 30,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think he's supposed to be that.
realistically, right?
Yeah.
But I got confused because later on it's Roger Sterling from Mad Men playing him.
Yeah.
Uh, John Slattery is his name,
Mm-hmm.
and let's see. Uh, at the time of this movie, he was 48. Um, so I guess when he plays the character in Civil War in that flashback, which supposedly occurs in 1991.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that character, I mean, he should be like 80 something.
Yeah, I think he's supposed to be playing like a 70-year-old.
And John Slattery's like barely 50. I mean, anyway,
Mm-hmm.
it's just like I feel like the timeline's weird. It feels to me like what it should have been is Howard Stark should have been the grandfather, you know? And then Tony Stark's father should have been a younger person who's John Slattery's age.
But that's not canon.
Okay, but they don't only use
Yeah.
canon. I mean,
Well, I
I've
mean, I
read.
just mean, I mean, it's important that um, Captain America worked with Tony's dad. Like,
But if he worked with
you
his
know,
grandfather, would it really be that
it
different?
does matter because Tony has a specific relationship with his dad that's part of his character arc. And losing his dad and that whole thing that happens, and that fuels a lot of the tension in Civil War. Is that Steve's connection to all that stuff that went on back then with his dad and stuff. So I think that's. I mean, I agree with you that like but it's a movie, so John Slattery is just cast as a little bit younger than the actor should be. The character should be. So I mean, that happens all the time.
I mean, it's more than a
I mean, I
little
just feel
bit.
like you can have everything else make sense and just ignore that John Slattery is like 15 or 20 years too young for
I
that
just think it's
role.
weird that they did a recast, but he's still way too young. It's almost like because like for for Peggy Carter, they used the same actor and just put a bunch of makeup on. You know,
Yeah, well, I guess you'd have to find out why they recast because it could have maybe the original actor couldn't do it, so they
but
had
they
to.
didn't even do a lot of makeup. Like I don't know, whatever. As I said, it's a nitpick, but I just found
Mhm.
it like hard to understand like how this timeline works. I don't know. I think it could have been fine the other way because I think ultimately like the stuff that I mean at least in terms of these movies, like I can't speak for everything that happens in say the Iron Man movies, like I feel like the connection with Tony's dad for Captain America is I mean it's there, but it's not like they had like a deep bond or anything. Like the fact that it's really the Bucky thing that is the main issue, between them at the end, and that I mean that still would have been there. I think it could have worked to just make it,
Yeah,
but
but
yeah, it's
yeah,
possible that they
I mean, if
just
they're inventing it from scratch, there's better ways they could do it. But they're adapting it from the comics, so they're not going to change the hierarchy of like who was with who.
they should have had Stan Lee play the older version. Like he's the right age. And he's always around in all these movies. Just saying.
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean we've looked up multiple things from the comics that they changed, so I don't think they're totally against that. It's possible that they planned to do something that made more sense and they couldn't for whatever reason. But anyway, um, Howard Stark, he's too old or he's too young. It's I don't know which one. It's a little of both.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like in this movie he should be like 10, and in the future movie he should be like 80. So
Now that I was just looking this up, I forgot. So John Slattery played the character first in Iron Man 2. When they were shooting Captain America: First Avenger, they had to recast with Dominic Cooper because they couldn't use Slattery for a character that young, I guess.
why not
Um,
though? I mean they did
so
Kurt
they
Russell.
didn't
They
have the de aging technology back then.
they didn't have it back then.
No,
Okay.
they didn't have it back then.
I was wondering
So
like
that's yeah.
okay. Okay, so de-aging is like a newer thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Cause yeah, they used the shit out of that in the later movies. But yeah, fair
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
enough. Okay. Okay, so that's interesting. I guess that explains it then. They had a previous casting, they felt the need to do a recast because of special effects lack, and then it created this weird, like,
Yeah.
disjointed age thing. Okay. Okay, fair enough. Um uh let's see. I think let's see. Yeah. Right. So he sacrifices himself at the end, and then he goes into the ice, and that's where he stays until like the present day, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And they do this like wake up thing, and yeah, yeah. Yeah. So I think that's my last nitpick about the first Avenger.
Gotcha. Okay.
Which isn't really about the first Avenger. It's really about that whole Stark thing that is all over the
That's a
Marvel
very
movies.
specific nitpick.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
uh, One of the things I would nitpick, which is more about the story, is I thought the Howley Commandos could have been done a bit better. I always felt like when I watched this movie, and it's like I want that um, kind of those early scenes with them to mean more, so that when they're fighting together later, it kind of means more.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Steve, goes into the prison camp and meets a couple other guys, but doesn't really fight with them in that scene. And then later, he's like, "Oh, I got to pick a team. I'll pick these guys." And it's like I just wish we had already had a scene where they had fought together and kind of earned each other's trust, sort of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's the kind of thing we've seen in movies like that before. So I was like, sort of expecting that scene, and it didn't happen. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. It's like
Mm-hmm.
it feels like a shortcut. Like they just didn't have time to develop that thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it'd have to be longer, I think.
but I like the Tommy Lee Jones character. He's really good at playing characters who are like in control. They're like in charge. They're sarcastic, and like they know everything more than everyone else, except for like once or twice in the movie where they'll be stumped. Because it reminds me of his No Country for Old Men character, um, where he's just got this way of being that's really fun on screen when he's
Yeah.
like playing these like military law enforcement characters.
Yeah.
And like Men in Black, Men in Black is like that too, where he's got a type of character he's good at.
Yeah, yeah, typecast, I think is the word for that,
Mm-hmm.
definitely. Yeah. Now I did enjoy the character, but yeah, it is sort of a variation on stuff I've seen him do in other movies. And that's basically what he says here in this quote about it on the Wikipedia page.
He says what?
he he described the character as the one you've seen in 1,000 movies, the gruff, skeptical officer overseeing a team of talented, slightly sarcastic, especially talented soldiers.
Well, whose quote is that?
That's Tommy Lee Jones
Oh, talking about the character.
talking about the character. Yeah,
Gotcha.
uh, but yeah, I think for as he describes, like what is a fairly standard part. Like again, it's like actors kind of elevating things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I would say. But yeah, I agree. It definitely worked. I mean, that's he was very effective in that part. That's
Mm-hmm.
the Tommy Lee Jones part.
The ending where Captain America comes out of the ice and he wakes up in the room and he can tell something's off. And then he runs outside and it's Times Square and he's in the future. It reminds me of like Vanilla Sky.
Mm-hmm.
It adds this extra element. The movie's already had its tone and stuff, and then like all of a sudden you just skip forward 70 years.
Yeah.
And then like Sam Jackson shows up and he's like, Nick Fury, and you're like, what's happening now? What? Um, and then the whole thing of where they sort of tease the Avengers at the end. Um, yeah, it's a pretty good ending.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's like if you didn't really like that storyline, don't worry, we're done with the 40s
Yeah. Yeah.
Nazi.
Yeah. Very definitive. Like. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and I think they had to. They want to bring the characters together. Like they need to bring this character where the other characters are, like in
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
He can't stay in the 40s forever. So yeah, 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 I enjoyed the ending. It was good. I agree.
Cool. So, what did you think of Winter Soldier?
Um, yeah. Okay. So yeah, Winter Soldier like had a much more interesting plot. I think.
Mm-hmm.
Um, actually, like I would go so far as to say of the three, the Winter Soldier is probably the one that where I enjoyed the plot the most.
Gotcha.
Um, like Civil War has its own strengths, but yeah, I think the plot of Winter Soldier was the most compelling to me. The early stuff, especially like the first however long of the movie,
Mm-hmm.
um, uh, it's it really is like. like I think you described it, maybe it was off the podcast, I don't remember, but as like basically a spy movie.
Yeah, yeah. It's like a
um
'70s spy thriller.
and so we get like there's like double crime, a little bit Alias, this whole like it's a secret agency that's been infiltrated by another secret agency, like it's kind of
Classic.
crazy. What?
It's a classic.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And like, it's like uh Nick Fury like hires people to hijack this ship to like get information because he thinks there might be a like an element in Shield like undermining them. It's like, and the way that develops, and then like he fakes his own there's just like a lot of
Hmm.
fun plot stuff, and I didn't really know where this was going because they reference this stuff in the Avengers movies, but they do it like in a way where if you don't know what's happening, like I don't know, I didn't I just didn't really understand what I was supposed to think about that. Um, so yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Hmm.
I I enjoyed like the slow like reveal of what's really going on, the Hydra infiltration, the fact that Robert Redford is like in on it. Um, like all that stuff was a lot of fun.
Hmm.
I think like all the movies at a certain point, it's like, it's time to do a bunch of action sequences.
Yeah.
And that's fine. That's that they want to deliver that. But yeah, I think I most enjoyed the movie when it was like developing, like the first like 45
Hmm.
minutes, hour, or something like that, where they're just like where I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And and I'm just trying to figure it out like they are. It's got that spy mystery thriller kind of thing happening.
Hmm.
And it was a lot of fun to have to have Black Widow there, who's like a very appropriate character for this kind of story, you
Yeah.
know.
Well, she's a spy who we haven't gotten to see her do a lot of spying throughout
Mm-hmm.
her screen time, and so that's another thing that is really well done with this movie is the team up of those two characters together. The good guy and the bad girl,
Yeah,
you know, having to team up, and she's teaching him spy tricks.
yeah.
Uh, it's so good, man. The movie is so slick and stylish and cool, and it's got yeah. I like Civil War more because it's just a bigger story, but Winter Soldier, I feel like it's just I don't know how to describe it. I like it. I like it as well. I feel like it's like when you're in a it's like kind of the difference between being in the mood for like a movie or a TV show. It's kind of like, do I want a small but action packed thriller and watch Winter Soldier, or do I want big, action packed, expansive, crazy story, and go watch Civil War,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah, I think for me it would be like uh I think like I said, in this I prefer the plot, in Civil War I preferred the character stuff.
Hmm.
Like the characters were really driving the movie in Civil War, whereas here it really feels like the plot is driving the movie.
Yeah, the characters are reacting to what's happening.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, there is character stuff, absolutely, and it's good, but it's like it's way more heavily featured in Civil War, I think.
Hmm.
And so like it just came to the forefront, and so I think on that level, like I preferred Civil War, um, but yeah, like just to follow the plot, like yeah, this was just a really fun plot, I think. um,
Hmm.
and Yeah, and and Bucky coming back, like unfortunately, like I knew that was gonna happen
Mm-hmm.
because I already saw the other stuff, but I still think it's a crazy reveal,
It is a crazy
that
reveal, and
like
the way they do it is so well done. Yeah,
he falls off the train, it's like why would you think that character would come back?
you wouldn't. Yeah.
And the fact that he comes back and like he's been programmed to be like the enemy, there's I don't know that stuff definitely there's good character stuff there,
Mm-hmm.
which continues into the next movie as well.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I love about the Winter Soldier storyline is just how he's introduced. You've got the whole. First of all, the action sequences in this movie are really great. The first, like, um, the attack on Fury in his car, I thought
Oh yeah,
was a particular type of a vehicle based action scene we've never seen before. Had some twist in how it worked and what you're expecting. It has a line in there that I don't know if there's a trope name for lines like this, but there should be. But basically, it's the scene where Hydra is attacking his SUV, and but we're the movie does a good job of ping ponging you in these action sequences about like what's going to happen, and you think, oh no, all the guys have guns, they're going to shoot out his windows, but oh no, the windows are bulletproof. Okay, and obviously this is Nick Fury. He's like 10 steps ahead of everybody, right? So he's going to be have some protection. But the way it just keeps ratcheting up, okay, didn't they? Okay, now they got to bust through the windows, so they're gonna go get the big pneumatic thing that's just gonna like knock through the window. And he's got this computer controlled car, and he's trying to get the power back, and then there's like this secret mystery of like the big gun or whatever. I forgot what they called it. But you're like, okay, oh, the what is it called? Uh, I forgot what they called it. He's like deployed a failsafe or safety measures or something. I forgot what they called it, but it's this whole thing where he's like waiting for the right moment to reveal this crazy thing this car has, and when he reveals it, it's just like this Gatling gun that comes out of the armrest. And he shoots the guys and he gets away. But the line that they say that I love, and I wish there's a word for this, is he's like, activate flight mode, and you're like, what? Like, oh, this car is not gonna fly. Like, after all we just saw this thing do, are you telling me it's about to take off? And then of course immediately we're disabused of that when the computer's like, not enough, or flight system's damaged. So it's one
right.
of those lines like they have no intention of actually following through with that,
Yeah,
but it just throws it in your mind of what could be possible. And I wish there's a word for things like that, because that happens sometimes, in
yeah,
stories. And it's one of my favorite lines in the movie when he says that, because it always makes me go, what? And then you're like, no, this thing is not gonna fly right now. Sorry. Uh, but so that's one of my favorite action sequences. And then, but I was just saying the way the plot starts with Fury getting attacked, him coming to Steve Rogers, undercover, and like you were saying with the mystery, giving him this MacGuffin disc, of
yeah,
like, here's what all the fuss is about, but we don't know what's on this thing. And then having Steve, be embroiled in this kind of mystery about um, who to trust, and that's been such a big part of his character arc. Is how he trusts, trusting himself, trusting institutions, trusting the people around him, and getting either screwed over by the institutions he's trusted or used by them. And so obviously that comes as a big part of the whole thing with Bucky, and why he's willing to sacrifice so much for him and stuff. But one of my favorite action scenes in all of the MCU is the elevator scene. When he
oh
goes to
yeah, yeah,
Triskelion, and he's talking to the Robert Redford character, and and things don't go that well, and he's trying to leave, and then one by one he notices the elevator filling up with the special Hydra agents, or the Shield agents, who turn out to be Hydra agents.
Right.
It's again, it's a classic thriller moment of slowly noticing something's wrong, slowly that impending doom is creeping in, and you're like, what? Wait, what's about to happen? Because these guys have been good the whole time. Like, what? How are they gonna? What's about to happen here? And then Cap's like, before we begin, if anybody wants to leave, now's the time. And you're like, holy shit, And it's like he fights off all these guys. Such a cool action sequence. But then on top of that, so he knocks out like 15 guys, and then escapes the building. Jumps through the elevator window, falls 30 floors, lands on
Yeah.
his shield, and gets up and keeps going. And then he's on the motorcycle, and this is like the car in extra high octane, extra high gear, where he goes up against the Quinjet, and he he's on his motorcycle, and he launches the shield and knocks out one of the turbines, and he flips his motorcycle, and he jumps on the ship, and he acrobats his way between the wings, and knocks out the engines, and then does the hero land on his shield just in time to see the ship go down, and he's gone in a flash, and you're just like, yeah, I'd follow that guy anywhere. Like, that's the coolest shit I've ever seen in my entire life. This guy just took out a fucking airplane in 15 seconds, and didn't break a sweat. So that's why I love these moments. That the action sequences are so well done, but it becomes like this. Like, one of the things I like is, in the serialization of these action sequences, you get to see their power and their ability, increase over time. So, like I was saying, you see a scene like this was like, damn, Steve Rogers, like there's not that many people who can do that. And different characters would have had to approach that situation different ways with their own powers. But you go from that to him fighting Thanos, right, as like a crazy next level to what he's capable of doing. So that's the other thing I like about just all the fact we have so many movies and scenes with these characters is, you get to just see their skills develop, through the action sequences.
Right. Right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I didn't really think about that, but I see what you mean. That makes sense. That's true. A sort of related point that isn't a nitpick, but is more of a curiosity point that I have about like this world,
Mm-hmm.
um, it almost makes me want like a leftover show or something where like it's about like uninteresting people in this world.
Mm-hmm.
um because like to live in this world is to live in a crazy world where like
Yes.
crazy shit is happening,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not like it's kept secret, right? So like you brought up the scene where they try to kill Samuel L. Jackson, like they're just opening fire with like tons of
Mm-hmm.
machine guns in broad daylight in the middle of the street.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's like, how, like this has got to be on the news, right? Like
Yeah.
this has got to be like,
Oh no, people are. Oh, the world's insane, but don't forget, yeah, aliens attack the planet.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
the
yeah.
world.
No, I mean that's a good example. In Ant-Man they showed when he was big, they showed a news story,
Mm-hmm.
with him like that, so there was like an acknowledgement that, the world realizes that this is crazy. But it just makes me wonder, like, if you're just a normal person,
Mm-hmm.
like how do you, I don't know, like it's
Mm-hmm.
like this
You
world is,
get into that a little bit with some of the Marvel TV shows. Some of the those Netflix TV shows, Luke
okay.
Cage, Daredevil, Jessica
Hmm.
Jones, because they take place within a similar timeline, and they're all based in New York. So you get to, and they're all like sort of the idea. They're like the street level crime fighters. You know, like that's
Hmm.
kind of the maximum of their power. You know, they're not going to go up against Thanos.
Right.
Um, but you do get some of that. You know, understanding what the collateral damage looks like, understanding how characters and the people of the world are reacting to these like big events that are happening. And but yeah, no, you're right. I mean, like, yeah, the world, a world with superheroes is crazy, and that's what, you know, Vision talks about in Age of Ultron, is like just the fact of Iron Man coming out and saying, "Oh, I'm Iron Man, I'm hot shit. Look at me with all my power," means someone's gonna come out and challenge him, and now someone's gonna come out and challenge him, and you get this like, because you did this one good thing of trying to protect people and be a symbol, you know. Same thing with Captain America, right? Of just like, you know, Hydra always trying to get that super soldier serum and like, you know, get a weapon just as good, you know. So it's, yeah, it's kind of interesting, how that compounds over time, you know. And then you just get so much more chaos in the world, you know. And then you have characters who like seek out power, you know, and you do crazy experiments or use sci-fi stuff to like empower themselves and turn into villains and stuff like that.
Right.
But yeah, yeah, the world's crazy.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then and
yeah.
then if the world wasn't crazy already, 50% of the people disappear for 5 years.
Yeah, yeah, no,
So
yeah, it gets crazier than this, but it's like, yeah, I don't know. I was just wondering, like, it's just kind of funny in a way because Hydra, they're like these like covert organizations who usually would like try, like in a more normal version of this kind of story, like I would expect them to try to keep their activities like secret, but like they really don't do that. They just like go for it in the middle of broad day. I would expect them to
mhm,
like kidnap Sam Jackson, take him to a secret location, and like
mhm.
I would expect that to be
That's what they were
it.
trying to do.
Yeah, but like covertly, not like with like
Mhm,
80 machine guns aimed at
mhm.
his car. You know what I mean? Like they're not slick spies. They're like
Well, no, they're law enforcement, so they're, you know, they can do whatever they want to do. They don't have to hide if they're after a suspect. You know what I mean? And it's Hydra that is that's a secret, but Shield.
Yeah, but like, I mean, I look, I mean, I know like the militarization of the police is a problem, et cetera, et cetera. But like, if they pull out 80 machine guns and they're firing at a car, I mean, even if there's a defense, even if they want to say like we need to do this, like that's
Hmm.
still like quite a notable, I don't
Yeah,
know, like
but you
I
know
don't
that actually happens in real life, though, right? Like that's happened here, where like dozens of cops have opened fire on a single car.
with machine guns and like
Yeah, I mean, not machine guns, but I don't know if the bullet count really matters at that point. Like, or the gun type really matters when the number of bullets is still really high.
I just, yeah, like doing it with machine guns makes it seem more extreme, because they don't even
Sure.
have to pull them one at a time.
Well, they, yeah,
You
and don't
know?
forget they are going up against the high tech security vehicles, so that's another reason why, yeah, they have to have bigger firepower than you know what you might expect normal cops to have.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I get that there's a logic for why they do it, and it's not like it doesn't make sense. It's just like in a normal spy movie, like this stuff would be, like to whatever extent like they were exposed to the public, like they would try to have a way to make it look normal, but there's just no way for that to look normal.
Yeah,
It's like what they're doing is crazy. Like at the very least, it raises questions about the car they're firing at. Like,
yeah.
why is it
But don't
withstanding?
forget, but Shield is building, you know, three helicarriers that could
Oh,
kill
I
millions of
know. It gets even
people
more
in
ridiculous
like,
than this. So
yeah,
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 this is
yeah.
not. This is
So
not
it's not,
even.
yeah, so it's not that weird. I think that is normal in that world, that they're not going to have a hard time explaining why they did that. And there's a control aspect too, where they don't really have to answer to anybody anyway, right? It might be on the news story if somebody caught the video, but as they even show in the movie, like he's got the government in his pockets, with and he's got control. So ultimately, Pierce does. So it's like not a big deal if he shoots up a car in the middle of the street, like at all.
Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. No, I was just thinking, it's like if this is the only thing that happened, like this would be crazy. In the context of this world, it isn't even that crazy. It's actually like
Hmm.
fairly routine.
Yes. Yeah.
So anyway, that was the thought I had. That it's just like it's just a crazy world, where like the spies don't give a shit about secrecy. Because like what they're doing is like not even as crazy as the stuff that doesn't have anything to do with spies. Like there's so much going on in the world that like they don't even have to worry about covering up what they're doing. Like they can just do whatever they want.
Yeah. But that's the thing, because they're shield. Like it's like, yeah, that's what spy agencies do. Like they can just get away with it. They don't have to, like, answer to
But
anybody.
like normal spy agencies don't just do like they do things in a way that's intended to be covert with like plausible deniability or whatever
Mm-hmm.
to limit the knowledge of what they're doing and
Yeah.
why. you know
Mm-hmm.
like this is more like it's more like a military thing than
Well, that's
like
what Shield is. I mean, they're more like the CIA and FBI combined. So they're not just spies. They're like law enforcement in general with a particular, like Homeland Security or something.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I get your point.
yeah, 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 yeah. Uh the small comment I was going to make: Steve Rogers breaks a lot of glass.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
the amount of glass broken, it's like if he goes in a room and there's glass in there, it's like, oh shit, that glass that glass isn't going to last. And so when they get in that elevator and it's like glass, it's like, oh no, oh
Mm-hmm.
no. This elevator is not going to make it because anytime he gets anywhere near glass, it's just he's busting through that shit. Either he's flying through it or he's throwing someone through it or he's
Mm-hmm.
throwing his shield or something's happening where glass is getting broken. The amount of
Yeah.
broken glass, seriously. And that's again where I start to imagine like the practical ramifications of the damage that happens. And again, the damage I'm talking about is nothing compared to the stuff that happens in other parts of this world where, like you said, I mean, New York gets like totally wrecked in the first Avengers movie, way beyond anything like Steve Rogers ever does by himself.
Mm-hmm.
But still, like, I don't know, and I guess like in a way that's standard for action movies, but it just I don't know, it really stood out to me like how much property damage there is.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they walk into a building and it's like, oh man, don't, maybe they'll save your life. Maybe you'll be glad they're here. Maybe they're going to help you. If you got valuable things that are breakable, like you got to get them away from these people. Like they will just destroy everything in a room.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that was
But
that.
they'll also save your life, so it's a
Sure, sure. I mean,
small
that's the
price to
trade
pay.
off. That's the trade-off. And if you want to say it's worth it, I won't argue with you, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying, like, who's gonna fix that window?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Somebody's got to do it, right?
Yeah, there's a show. I think it's based on a comic, but there's a show that was had something to do with that. I don't think it was an MCU related show, but it was basically like about regular people in a world with superheroes, and I think the main characters worked at like an insurance company, and it was dealing all the kind of stuff you just mentioned of like oh, a superhero crashed into my building. Now who pays for this? Like I gotta
Mm-hmm.
file a claim, you know, and like
Right.
so it was sort of answering that question that you were saying about like what are the mundane things people have to just get done in a world that's this crazy with superheroes running around the
Mm-hmm.
background. And the TV show The Boys gets into that a little bit. It's about superheroes and some sort of real world ramifications there. And then Batman versus Superman got into that a bit too, I think. Because, well, actually, I think what I'm remembering is the actual movie itself had a kind of backlash because, or I don't know, people talked about how much destruction there was in the final battle between Superman and Zod. Like so much of the city is just destroyed with them knocking each other into buildings and stuff like that. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember that being a big topic about that movie. And I can't quite remember if they talk about it more in the sequel or not. I feel like they do, but yeah, yeah, yeah. That's an interesting part of it too, of like what's actually happening when these characters are saving the world. You know, they get into that with the Civil War and
Yeah, yeah.
all this stuff.
Yeah, it definitely comes up in a sort of oblique way, in a more global way in Civil War. But yeah, they do at least like address the ramifications of the damage that happens when they're around. But I guess the other thing it makes me think is that like in this world where there's like a threat to the world, like every I don't know what how long, I almost would think like the whole global economy would collapse because of like uncertainty and like the lack of security. And like I feel like it would almost descend into chaos, because like you just can't count on like you know
Mm-hmm.
you can't count on the world not ending tomorrow. Or like when half the people disappear, like
Well, I feel like what 2020 and the pandemic taught us is we keep going on. The economy keeps going on. Like people, even in the face of craziness and literal apocalyptic events, things just keep going on. There is normalcy, and I agree with your point, but I feel like things will even half the people disappear. You still have to like things will fall apart, right? Like there'll be infrastructure stuff like that to deal with, but like um I think humans would default into what they know, and that's like their normal lives, even like you know when shit's hitting the fan. um but yeah, that's a philosophical question.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like, a lot of what economies need to function is, I mean, there's a lot of levels to it, but like there needs to be some stability and security of things, like for investments to happen, for it to be worth it to do, to build a facility or expand or, whatever, um I'm not here to downplay the pandemic. It's really bad. But the stuff that we see in these movies is actually, in my opinion, far worse.
Mm-hmm.
Far worse. So it's hard to compare. I mean, I think it did have economic impacts, the pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
um, and continues to. Proportionally, I think, yeah, in a world where this stuff is happening, it's just hard for me to imagine. I could just imagine like currency being devalued, and I could
Yeah, but you'd
just
also have people. I mean, it's the same system, so you'd still have people who are playing and making money off and surviving off the volatility, right? So even if there are huge disruptions, you can still succeed in that environment. You could just
well, but if the currency is worthless, it won't matter if you make a lot of it. You know what I mean? If there's like if it doesn't buy anything,
Mm-hmm.
then you know what I mean. That's the level I'm talking about. Like where it'd be so extreme that like it's happened that currency gets so devalued that like there's sort of an economic collapse like within a country.
Mm-hmm.
I could just see like this level of shit happening, having that effect on a global scale, where like economies can't function anymore because like these currencies are worthless because these countries are, like not reliable. Like their
Gotcha.
existence is not certain at all. You can't count, you don't want to give them a loan, like they might be dead tomorrow. you know like that's the thing. Like it really puts things in such an extreme place that it's almost hard for me to believe that there's any normalcy in the world at all.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these flying hello things, I mean, they're gonna kill like millions of people with that.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's crazy. I mean, there's flying death machines. I mean,
Yeah, but you still have to get up and go to work tomorrow. I mean, I just feel like what we know of human history is tragedies don't stop us from doing normal stuff. I definitely take your point about, yeah, economic collapses and what's needed
and at a
for it
certain
to like
point, I
stop.
mean, normal stuff does stop. I mean, it has stopped. I mean, that it's not unheard of.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I mean, no, yeah. Some normal things stop. Not everything that's normal stops.
But yeah, I mean, we haven't gone extinct yet,
Mm-hmm.
but we haven't faced stuff like this. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that I think could head in that direction, or if not extinction, at least like global chaos.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a collapse of structure and
Yeah.
sort of a descent into anarchy and you know everyone for themselves basically.
Yeah, and I think
Scat like
the
a Walking
other
Dead type
yeah
scenario.
the other thing that is obviously a factor in that calculus is the whole idea of heroes, right? So the whole idea of the Avengers existing, I think, is supposed to play a role in that stability, right? The idea that, if something gets attacked, it's not necessarily going to be the end of the world. There's actually something that'll stop that, so I think that's the other part to add to that evaluation, is like when they're, if we're really gonna, try to put ourselves in the minds of these, the everyday people in these worlds, because it's obviously not what the movies are focused on, but the idea that, like, you can keep your normalcy because these heroes exist, because you have faith they'll be there when you need them. I think it's supposed to go a long way to keeping things more stable than you would otherwise think.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I could almost see like sponsoring the superheroes or something because like
Hmm.
they're the
That's
only
what the
thing
boys.
that.
That's what the boys is about. It's sort of a dark take on the superhero idea, and that corporations actually are in control of superheroes and sponsor them
Yeah,
and use them for branding and stuff like that. And yeah,
yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah. Like I,
mhm,
I would because yeah, I agree. Like that they're the only thing standing between the world and like total collapse. So it's like the value of them
mhm,
is through the roof. It's like
mhm,
they're the most valuable thing. So yeah, no, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that does kind of make sense, but it's uh, um, through watching the Marvel movies, I repeatedly had the sensation of like, just watching some of these like bystanders or, when they're just be like out in public and like stuff is happening and it's like, oh my God, like I don't know. Maybe that's always true in crazy action movies, but it does feel maybe a little bit up a level, I think, because of the sort of comic book craziness of what, how far they go
mhm.
and the scale they go.
Yeah. One thing I like about the movie Winter Soldier is the Winter Soldier. I was talking about that before. I thought the reveal of Bucky Barnes is done really well. Even just when he shows up and we don't know who he is, and he's just this menacing character, and he seems like he's as strong and fast as Captain America, which is always scary for the audience, but it's thrilling because you want to see the characters be tested. And then they have that fight in the streets. That was one of the best one-on-one fights, and Captain does a few tricks and a few moves on Winter Soldier and flips him over, and his mask comes off. And if you listen to the track at that moment, like right before, like 15 to 20 seconds before the reveal of Bucky Barnes that he's the Winter Soldier, they start this low tone in the track, this like that like slowly, gradually like comes up in amplitude right at that moment in crescendos. It's really cool. If you go back and listen to that, and you probably heard it, and if you didn't consciously hear it, but it's a
Subconsciously,
cool,
yeah.
yeah, it's a cool little thing of like you don't even know a reveal is coming, you know,
Right.
and then but they're setting you up for it with the score, which is really cool. But yeah, it's super surprising. It's like it's you're like, how not only did he survive the fall, but 70 years later he's here. All that stuff is crazy, and yeah, for a spy thriller with a lot of mystery. Um, that was a great reveal, and one of the things I like about how he's portrayed, is he reminds me of, and another reason the movie gives me the '70s feel is he reminds me of Michael Myers. He's got this menacing determination. He doesn't say a lot in the whole movie. Up until he's revealed. And he reminds me of like a slasher villain, but who's got a metal arm. But he's like the Terminator, or something like that, where he's like this methodical killing machine.
Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, I agree. Um, Small question about that. Why is he the Winter Soldier?
Um, that's what they dubbed. I think that was the code name for the project that made him a super soldier or something like that. Um, we can look it up.
Because like I had the impression that they called him that just because like he was like in a wintry place and he was a soldier. That's the impression I got from the movies. I don't think they ever said that out loud.
No, it's not just that. Let me see what this says about it. That's not going to tell me.
But yeah, while you're looking at that, I'll just say that, I do kind of wish I could have seen it without knowing where it was going the whole time because I think you're meant to be surprised by that reveal. I still enjoyed it nonetheless, but yeah, it was weird sort of knowing. And I think the other thing that was weird is seeing the Michael Myers um, Bucky having seen the later one, where
Mm-hmm.
he really isn't so much like that anymore. Um, so it's like it's kind of shocking. Like, yeah, I guess I had like a vague idea that like something like this happened, but yeah, I guess I didn't really understand like the level of brainwashing and stuff that happened, where he was like
Mm-hmm.
sort of programmed and um,
Mm-hmm.
uh, wait, how did he stay around for 70 years?
So they put him on ice at a certain point.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Oh, is
Yeah.
that why he's the Winter Soldier? That's probably not it either.
Yeah, I'm trying to find
It's
it.
also weird because like Captain America was also frozen.
Mhm.
It's almost like he could be the Winter Soldier.
Well, the Winter Soldier, I know, is the name, is the title of the comic where the character's introduced. So that's one thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm trying to see origins. Somehow it's hard to find this answer.
Yeah, I don't really think you're supposed to worry about it that much, but it was something that popped into my head at a certain point. Um,
Oh, it
since
looks
like,
like that's just his code name. Yeah, like I thought. It's just this is just seeming to describe him. That's just this. He became a secret assassin, and that was just his code name, the Winter Soldier,
mm-hmm.
because it sounds cool, you know.
Yeah, and he's from this like he was like programmed in this like wintry Siberian-ish place, so he's a soldier from. It's not always winter there, but it's cold when it is winter, and maybe he arrived there when it was winter. And yeah, no, I
I think
agree. I
yeah,
think it just
yeah,
sounds cool.
yeah. It just sounds cool. Um, but yeah, another thing I really like about the movie is the introduction of Falcon. I think Sam is a great character. The opening. I mean, now you got the origins of On Your Left from Endgame, uh,
Ah,
and
yeah.
which if you watch the movies in order, when you see it in Endgame, it's a really powerful moment to hear Sam say that, and you're like out of nowhere, leading up to this climactic battle, and like, and then obviously leading up to Steve
Yeah, I definitely did not
finally
appreciate that
saying,
when I saw it
him
in
finally
the
saying,
Avengers.
you're the Avengers assemble, huge line.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I thought like Sam's character was um, just he comes off on the screen like you like him immediately, and then if you didn't already like him, he can fly. And like one of the moments I love is when they show up on his doorstep, after getting almost destroyed by Hydra, uh, or Zola in that bombing.
Right.
He's like, hey, if Captain America needs my help, there's no better reason to do something, and so that whole thing of um, that mythology and the branding and the lore of Captain America that they, engineered, for the war, and then, all that stuff, has this effect, where he's seen as this big, great hero. And so I just love that moment when Sam kind of is like, ready to suit up, as it were, um, because he knows if Captain America is fighting for something, it's a good fight, and yeah, even Sam's character gets a lot more interesting as it goes on. But yeah, I thought those three are a really good combo. Falcon, Black Widow, and Captain America. They're really good in this movie. The way the story bounces off of those characters is really well done.
Yeah, no, I agree. He's really heavily featured in this one. And to a degree in the next one. And yeah, it was kind of helpful to flesh that out because I think that didn't have time to come across as much in the Avengers movies.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, one thing that I think is kind of interesting about the character is, I guess. So yeah, this is an example of something I was curious about, like who made this Falcon suit, you know,
Mm-hmm.
um, and if I understand this correctly, I think um, he was like in the military and it came through them, but like I think ultimately it goes back to a Stark thing.
I have lost you. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Oh, sorry, I lost you. I think for a second.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, maybe I cut out or something. I was just saying like he was in the military and I think that's like where he got it, but I think they got it ultimately from like Stark, like Tony Stark's company or something along those lines made it. So it's like sort of from the Iron Man lineage of stuff.
Um, well, I think yeah, the military. I think he was flying the suit in the military, and I assume they got the suit from the military because he's like the last one. Is it and behind three fences in a safe, or I forgot what I described it, but he's like there's one left, and they were gonna go get that. So I assume that's where that came from. And then I thought like his later suit came from Stark. Because he gets like an upgrade like every time he's in a new movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh yeah, so yeah, I started to wonder about that. And yeah, I looked up. So I think in the comics, the suit was actually made in Wakanda.
So that's a thing they eventually do show. Yep.
Um so anyway, yeah, that was just because I was wondering if it was like supposed to be like vibranium or whatever. That's what the shield, Captain America's shield also is stated to be vibranium.
Yeah, that's
And
definitely from Wakanda. Yeah.
but in the comics it's adamantium, apparently. So anyway,
Oh, I
minor
didn't know that.
tweaks, but but yeah, so they'll mess around a little here and there with some of these details to make it work, I think, the way they want it to. But vibranium is like the thing, at least as far as like earth metals go. um so I think it makes sense that they were like, let's have the shield be that.
I'm looking up this thing of Captain America's shield being adamantium in the comics because I've never heard that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I just looked it up. I'm not a comic person at all. I don't know anything about it innately or whatever, or not innately. What's the word? From experience. But yeah, I just read it.
Where are you reading that? Because I'm reading something sort of different.
Uh, well, I'd have to look it up again. Let's see. Do do. Okay, here we go. Huh. Uh, yeah. I guess the weird thing is. I guess the weird thing is. Adamantium has vibranium in it, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it says it on the Wikipedia page.
Under like what? Under
Physical composition.
for I mean, what's the page? Is it the shield?
Oh,
Is it
it's just
the page
called
for the shield?
Captain America's Shield.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. Anyway, oh, I see. Proto adamantium.
Proto adamantium. Yeah,
That's not the same as real adamantium. Okay.
apparently not.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay,
Never
that makes sense to me.
duplicated.
That makes sense to me. Okay. Yeah. 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 Saying it was like the same adamantium that's in Wolverine would have been really surprising to me. So that's why I was like wanting to figure out exactly what
Yeah.
you had
But it's
read.
at least related. It's in the lineage if they're calling it proto.
Oh, sure, sure, sure. Yeah, but it's chemistry. You move one atom around and you got a whole different thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess according to the lore, it's not literally the same as the Wolverine stuff.
Yeah. Um. Yeah, I love the Shield. I'm a big fan of all the acrobatics the Shield can do, and the way Cap fights with it. They really do a good job with his fighting style and just the crazy stuff. The Shield, you know. Even Peter Parker mentions that in Civil War. He's like, oh God, what was the line? Oh, he's like that thing doesn't follow any like laws of physics or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of shield acrobatics.
Mm-hmm.
I did wonder about the shield getting scratched, like sometimes it gets these like scratches and scuffs and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was kind of interesting. It's like, oh, something's, I don't know. There's something's really powerful. I don't know.
Well,
Like,
like Black Panther's scratched it, but he's got vibranium claws.
yeah, so that's what it made me wonder, like vibranium versus vibranium, like
Mm-hmm.
what wins? Like, it's like it's weird that it could damage its own thing. Like, why wouldn't it get, like I don't know. It's just
Because
weird
claws are sharp.
because claws are sharp. Okay, okay.
That's what I'm gonna go with for because claws are sharp for 400. Um, Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about Civil War. Is there anything else to talk about on Winter Soldier? I mean, I love it. It's yeah, I'm a big fan.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it was very enjoyable. It ends with this teaser with Wanda and her brother.
Mm-hmm.
Um and it's kind of jarring if you go from this to the next movie because Ultron happened between them.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
like the sort of redemption or turning of those characters like happens in between. So yeah, anyway, you pick it up and it's like they're just like integral. Well, not the brother because he died, but
Mm-hmm.
anyway, just to say that was something that was strange about watching these as just a Captain America marathon versus just going through like Marvel's sequence.
Yeah,
Um, it actually is a little bit more coherent if you just watch. But anyway, I enjoyed the idea of the teaser. It's a good setup for Ultron more so than Civil War because that was the next thing in the pipeline, I
that's what they
guess.
were setting up.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So yeah, no, I think that's it as far as this one goes. But yeah, it was definitely a step up from the first one by
Mm-hmm.
far.
Cool. All right. So, what do you think of Civil War?
Okay, so for Civil War, when I watched this, because I knew you were like, this is my favorite one. So I was like, okay, let's get into it. Definitely by the end, I was like, okay, I get why this is your favorite one. Like it's quite unique among all Marvel movies, really.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like there are multiple things about it that are interesting to me. um the first thing is like this initial thing that happens where um the Avengers basically are asked to sign this agreement to have like government oversight um following the events of uh Ultron.
Uh huh.
um okay, sorry. I'm like worried I'm getting something wrong. Anyway, uh and basically like Iron Man wants to do it, Captain America doesn't want to do it, which I think is funny. It's like I'm Captain America but I actually trust my country to oversee me. I don't know,
That's
he's
what's
not a
great.
patriot, he's
But
like
that's exactly why his character is great because that's his pathos. Is he's the ultimate patriot who was disabused of his patriotism because he saw. I mean, his first task as a soldier was to be used for propaganda, and he believed it. He believed in all that stuff, and that's what you see time and time again. Well, you see it in the first movie, and then you see it again in the second movie when he believes in Shield. He's like, okay, I fought for the
Mm-hmm.
for the U.S. Okay, blah blah. Now I'm fighting for Shield, and then they're just Hydra. They're just another organization. So he becomes, the guy who's willing to sign up for the army and jump on the bomb, the bullet, sorry, the grenade. He realizes he has to have a bigger reason, and that these institutions don't, as he even says in Civil War, right? Like that's why he won't just sign up and say I will do whatever the government wants, because people's agenda changes, and so he can be behind them today, and then tomorrow he can be the enemy, which is exactly what happens.
Right. Right. Yeah, no, no, it totally makes sense. It's really just that, like, if I looked at this from the outside, not knowing what they're
Hmm.
doing, I just wouldn't expect Captain America to be the one to
Yep.
get, you know?
And you don't expect Tony Stark, the rebel bad
No, but
boy, to be the
exactly.
one.
I was just gonna
That's
say
why
that
it's
the
good. That's
super
why it's good.
capitalist individual person,
That's why
like,
it's that's why it's so well done, is because they put the characters in these extremes where they actually have to rationalize to us why they have their viewpoints, and to rationalize to each other, and they surprise each other, even when they're like, wow, like you're gonna agree to these accords, and she has to explain her calculus on why it makes sense to, because she's in the middle between the two of them,
right,
right? She's like, well, this, we have to say yes for now, that's what makes sense. And I'm sort of in her camp of like, it kind of makes sense to say yes and then break away when you have to break away. But and then
mm-hmm,
Steve and Tony are just, zealots about their position, right? They're on the extremes of their position. So which you need them to be, because they have to, it has to escalate to a really big fight. So that means they have to really be bought into their belief. It can't just be like, well, maybe this is right. It's got to be, I'm 100,000% sure I'm right. I'm so right that I'm gonna, go against my friends here.
right.
For some bigger reason. And I just think it's just so well done. And it's such a delicate balance of character work to do that right. And to do it right and have like crazy action, in between. It's a really crazy mix. It's like the Thinking Man's, superhero movie or something. You could take, if you took out all the superhero stuff, it's still an interesting story. You could dramatize this on stage, without the action sequences, and it would be an interesting, story of like, because it's all it's they're debating like these themes, and like what's valuable and the limits and all this stuff of like the security and to your point about like thinking about the real world consequences of these of a, of a life, and with superheroes, like they actually take a whole movie to deal with that of like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, yeah,
what are we actually going to do here now that these people are around and they have more power than a nuke in their hands, and
yeah,
they're autonomous beings with no control. And so I like the fact that it makes sense that this plot would arise naturally, that they
yeah.
have to deal with that, in some sense. So yeah, it's an interesting place to tell a story from.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, no, I because I was thinking about that stuff, I was really surprised that they went there. And like the story ends up going in a somewhat different direction at the end. I'll get to that in a second. But I was really pleasantly surprised that they started with this and really took it seriously. The idea that there would be like regulation of what they're doing. I think what it reminded me of the most of like stuff I've seen is like some of the Watchmen stuff. Like
Mm-hmm.
this idea of like outlawing masked Avengers, or like, or whatever they called it, um vigilantes,
Mm-hmm.
like when they don't sign, like that's what they are, you
Mhm.
know. They're going out and doing, what they think is right,
Mhm.
um, but with very little accountability
Mhm.
and so, like, yeah, I love the idea that, a government would finally be like, no, like, this is, we gotta, like, get to pull the reins on this a little bit. There needs to at least be like some approval or something before you go off and, break a
Yeah.
bunch of windows or whatever.
Mhm.
It's obviously a lot worse than that, but yeah, no, I really love that idea. Um, so so the plot progresses, and then we have this bombing at the UN, um, which is like mentioned in Black Panther, and I was kind of confused by that.
Mhm.
But like it's kind of a big inciting incident because basically Bucky is framed for it. um you know I think people watching the movie, I mean, I certainly had the feeling that I didn't think he was guilty.
Mhm.
um uh it felt like there was some shenanigans going on, and they do eventually reveal what's happening, and so it's this guy who's like from the from Sokovia, I guess, like in the aftermath of what happens in Ultron.
Mhm.
And it's like his parents were killed. Is that what they said? His family was killed, somebody was killed. Anyway, doesn't really matter for the point I want to make, but just to say, like, I really liked the way the villain is incorporated into this movie in multiple ways. Uh,
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
the first thing was the way that the reveal about like why he's doing what he's doing, like that was cool. Another moment that I really liked was he's like he goes to this like place where they have these like super soldiers, um
Mhm.
and they think he's gonna like wake up the super soldiers and like program them and like
Mhm.
use them, but he actually
Yeah.
just kills them all, and he's like, you think I want more of these?
Yeah. That's Zemo is one of the best like lower level villains they've had in the MCU, where it's another perfect combination of casting and the writing, where he shines in that role so well. Like, and I agree. Like, there's nothing better than a villain who has a good plan and like knows how to execute it. And that's what he does. And I do love that moment too, where we think he's going to activate all the super soldiers. Because what I want is, I want to see my favorite heroes fight five super soldiers at
Mm-hmm.
the climax. That's what I would love to see right now. Thank you very much. And he's just like, no, my philosophy, as I've been saying the whole time, is you guys shouldn't exist. So why would you think I would do this? And I love
Mm-hmm.
that because it makes him, it reinforces the type of intelligence that he has showed the whole time, by being a step ahead. Every scene that he's in, up until that point, he's like ahead of everybody else.
Yeah.
He's always where he wants to be, and like they don't even know. He's right in their midst. About reprogramming Bucky to be the Winter Soldier. Um, you know, by his own orchestration, and they don't even know he's the bad guy until like that moment,
Right.
so to have a character who can be that far ahead that long, is cool, because you always want to see the characters have a face big challenges and
Right.
big villains, yeah,
And yet
Zemo's
he's
really
just a
cool.
normal person,
He's
right?
just a normal
Like,
person.
he has no powers.
Yeah.
He's just like whatever guy. And yeah, he managed like, I think I arrived at the same place, but I came at it from a different angle. I'm thinking, okay, obligatory battle with five super soldiers. What? They're not doing it? Like, I was just shocked that they didn't take the opportunity you know,
Mhm.
and like pleasantly surprised, and like that was the sign that the plot was going in a direction I wasn't really expecting.
Mhm.
um and so yeah, I appreciated that. And then the other thing that I just really appreciated about the end part of this is like they don't even like pay that much attention to him,
Yeah.
in the end. Like he kind of gets away, except it's Black Panther, or T'Challa, I should say, who apprehends him,
Yeah.
who's like, in the context of this story, like a B-level character,
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
he's the one who takes care of the main villain because they're not
Yeah.
even paying
Well,
attention to
because the
him.
villain of the movie, the villain and the hero are Iron Man and Captain America. Like
Yeah,
he's not the villain of the movie, you know. He's an antagonist, but he's not like the main. You know that all gets resolved. You know, like you're saying on the A level with Iron Man and Captain America.
he's the,
And I
he's the
love the
one
whole
who
thing
I
with
would
T'Challa too,
expect to
though. I
be the
love he's
villain.
got his own character arc going on. He's got his own mini movie happening here, and he gets his own redemption where he just decides he's not going to go for vengeance.
Yeah,
And what I love is how by by giving up that that stance, you know, which is sort of what Tony and Steve need to do, right, on a thematic level. Um, he's able to, you know, have the time and opportunity to like do the job and apprehend the bad guy, you know. So there's something that feels right about that, you know, that he's like, okay, I stopped being blinded by my vengeance, and now I can just like do the job of justice and apprehend you here, versus like, you know, Steve and Tony are busy still like mired in like fighting out their point of view, you know, and not just like letting it go.
right, right,
And
right.
you know.
Yeah, so like this is another thing that I just really appreciated because I was about to get like super annoyed with the movie, and then they swerved around the problem I was having because like, Bucky is framed for the murder of T'Challa's father.
Mhm.
And so he's like going after him for revenge for like, there's a chunk of the movie where this is happening. At a
Mhm.
certain point, Iron Man, Tony Stark, he sees evidence that that's not the case, that it wasn't Bucky.
Mhm.
He knows this, but we never see T'Challa told this on screen. And so towards the end, I'm dreading the fact that he's just going to show up and not know, and he's still going to be going after Bucky. And it's just the problem is just no one's told him that Bucky
Mm.
didn't do it, you know? But then he just shows up in the scene and he already knows. He already
Mhm.
knows Bucky
Mhm.
didn't do it. He knows this guy did it. And I was
Mhm.
just so relieved that we
Yeah.
didn't have to go through this like fake thing where he's trying to kill Bucky and they're like, no, it wasn't him. And,
Mhm.
like that was just,
Mhm.
I was like feeling the tedium. And I was so relieved that they just didn't do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they had all the ingredients to make that the thing, and I really thought that's what was going to happen. So
Mhm.
anyway, yeah, I appreciated that resolution. Like he's the character I thought was the villain, I guess I should say, and it's sort of a surprise reveal that he isn't.
Mhm.
At least that's how it came across to me. Um, so I really appreciated that. Um, okay, so and I did like, I think there's a lot of pathos and a lot of drama with, and I mean this is a superhero trope number two, at least, is like the death of the parents. um
Mhm.
so like Tony finds out that Bucky killed his parents. And so that was one like weird like detail that I thought was interesting, is like Bucky was innocent of this murder,
Mhm.
but not that
But
one.
later, because yeah, and you get a reversal, right? That he was innocent the whole time. He had a secret guilt, and that will come into play right at the very end when it matters the most.
Right.
Right when they could stop everything, Tony can't stop now because he just finds out what we knew this whole time. And
Yeah,
yeah, the
yeah.
writing is just that's a better, you know, it's just a higher level of writing, knowing when to have, well, reveal information for the most impact.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. So like that's, and they set it up earlier. So it's a powerful moment that he realizes this. And I think there's another little detail here. Uh there's another little detail here that I didn't quite get because like they make a point of it at the end. Like I don't think it was 100% clear in the battle, at least not to me, that that Steve knew that happened. You know, like when and how did he actually learn that Bucky killed Tony's parents? You know, I wasn't totally clear on that, and I actually didn't even know that he knew until the letter thing at the end where he says that he knew and he should have told him but he didn't. You know,
Yeah.
um,
I'm trying to remember. I think he finds out. Oh man, that's a good question. I used to know the answer to that. When does he find out? Uh, yeah, I'd have to look that up and see. I can't remember off the top of my head.
yeah. So like I didn't actually think he knew before in this scene. I thought the point was just like don't kill Bucky. you
No,
know
yeah, he did know before. I can't even remember if it was in the last movie where in Winter Soldier where he saw a file that referenced.
Yes, yes. Um, uh, I think I saw something on the internet about that there's a file, um, uh, and like that's although at that point, yeah, right, right, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like when they
Oh
declassify
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
shield
yeah.
stuff.
No, yeah, yeah, yeah. In Winter Soldier, when they go and they're Zola is talking to them about how Hydra infiltrated Shield, there's a whole thing about the Starks dying in a car accident, and um, and I think that's when does he see that Winter Soldier in that scene? Sorry,
Yeah, I
now I'm
think you're
getting
right that that scene was possibly part of it or the whole thing. Um, let's just say it's in there somewhere, but I didn't catch it. So I, yeah. So, anyways, it was a surprise to me at the end that like there was an extra level to the conflict that I didn't really
mm-hmm,
understand, even when it was happening.
mm-hmm,
Because I thought the conflict was simpler. I thought the conflict was, um, oh shit, Bucky killed your parents. Okay, well, he was programmed like don't kill him now.
mm-hmm,
Like I thought that was like pretty much it. I didn't really understand that there was this extra level of like you betrayed me, you knew this thing and you didn't tell me, you
mm-hmm,
know. I think that kind of took the conflict to a higher level and to sort of in the movie where he's like, I was wrong, I shouldn't have done that. I don't know, it was interesting. Like
mm-hmm,
it's a Captain America movie, and it's like he sort of wins the fight, and he prevails in a certain sense, but like it does end with like a kind of ambiguous note, of like the character admitting a mistake. I don't know. I thought that was an interesting note of the end as well.
mm-hmm.
Um, but I guess if I wanted to criticize it or if I had to, I would say that as much as I did enjoy the sort of pathos of, and maybe part of this is that I haven't seen the Iron Man movies and maybe like I would feel different, but like it's like the debate or the conflict between the characters starts with, are we going to sign the agreement or not, and I found that conflict like super interesting,
Hmm.
like, the ramifications of it and so on. And I think I was a little bit disappointed that their ultimate conflict actually has nothing to do with that. It's really just about this thing where Bucky killed Tony's parents, which is high drama, no doubt, but I find it a bit less interesting. And I mean, that's, that idea is something I've seen before, in other stuff. You killed my parents, I'm gonna kill you. No, that's my friend, don't kill him. It's like it's classic drama in a way, which is fine, but it meant that the other stuff kind of took a back seat. So anyway, that was a little bit of a disappointment, even though like in the moment I was swept up in the drama and I enjoyed like all the resolution stuff and the ending. It was well done, but I was left afterward thinking, oh, I feel like the agreement stuff, like it kind of got a little lost
Yeah,
in
because it
the
ultimately is just
other.
the catalyst. It's just
Yeah,
really the catalyst for them sparking the conflict.
exactly. So yeah, I got a little bit of a, like, if you're going to go to Lost, like a little bit of a Jacob and a Man in Black thing, where it's like we're having a debate about humanity, but then there's this more like concrete thing of like, you're trapped here and I won't let you leave. And it's sort of like I wanted more about the other thing,
Hmm.
and like, but what they actually really fight about is the practical thing,
Yeah, because
so
the other thing isn't physical.
right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, so like, yeah, I guess in the play version or whatever that you were mentioning, I guess I would like more
I
about
shan't
that.
sign that accord, dear sir.
Exactly. These are lines I want to hear.
I have not a penneth in my hand to sign such an accord, because I guess when you're on a stage, you have to be British, right?
Yeah. It feels right. I agree.
Yeah. It's 4 hours long and it's boring, but it's a lot about the accords.
That's what I want. I want a 4 hour boring thing about the Accords,
Yeah.
because that's interesting to me. I know that a lot of people won't agree with me about that, but I don't know. That was a super interesting element of the plot that I just wanted more. But
But there wasn't any more. What else do you want?
I wanted um I guess I wanted further development. I wanted more of like practical ramifications, maybe they sign it and it goes wrong, or they don't sign it and it goes wrong, or I don't know. And they do actually do that, a little bit of that, through
Yeah,
like
basically the
Ant-Man
people
and
who
stuff.
didn't sign just get imprisoned.
Yeah. 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 So there there is that. There is that. True. But yeah. I guess I just found that idea fascinating enough to sort of um, contain a story. Um, but yeah, I think for them it was the personal drama that really held the weight. Um, which I totally understand. And it did work. I'm not, I can't say that, the movie failed or whatever. It did the
Hmm.
thing. It did the thing it wanted to do. It's really just that they brought up an idea that I thought was more interesting than the movie did.
Mm.
Basically, in short.
But the movie brought up the idea, so they must have thought it was pretty interesting.
True, true, true. They
No, I'm
thought it
being
was
sarcastic.
interesting enough to bring up, obviously.
Yeah. Well, I bet if you want more of the Accords, you can go read the comics. Maybe there's
That's
more.
probably
Maybe
true.
there's
But then I have to
more.
read comics.
Yeah. Well, that's where Accords belong.
But yeah, I do think like I do enjoy that stuff. I think the practical ramifications of superhero dumb.
Hmm.
that's a sort of general class of thing um, that works for me. I think it's just an easier access point for me into the idea. It's like it makes it easier for me to relate to the story because it like puts it in a term where I can like actually envision it and it isn't just like pure bizarre fantasy.
Mm,
You know what I mean? So,
gotcha.
yeah. Uh uh glad they brought it up. You know, I I wish they had been, debating the finer points of Section 3C or whatever instead of like who killed Tony's parents, but you
Hmm.
know,
But nobody else wanted that, so that's the problem.
nobody else wanted that. Nobody
Yeah.
else wants.
Hmm.
But I mean, that's why, I think these movies, I'm not really the target audience for these movies. I have my own weird shit that I enjoy. And, you know, it's like, like Twin Peaks season 3 got like horrendous ratings because, it's not doing things that a lot of people want to see. And to be honest, there's a lot of stuff in that I didn't want to see either.
Hmm.
But just to say, uh, a lot of the stuff I like is just a bit obscure, or if not obscure, at least like idiosyncratic, and yeah, maybe doesn't have appeal to enough Americans or people around the world to get like hundreds of $1 million of funding and stuff like
Hmm.
that. But it's like I think that's what I've come to really believe about these Marvel movies. I feel like there's something going on that's like a little bit similar to some of the stuff that happened in the studio system in like the golden age of Hollywood or in the 70s or something. Like there's this like machine with like
Hmm.
shitloads of money and they want to use that money to make more money. Like that's really what they care about. But
Hmm.
like within that, there are people doing things that are more interesting than they need to be to like turn the profit.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I appreciate the fact that there's something happening there and it's like so there's this like opportunity. It's like you got to work your way into the world. You have to there's conventions, there's a certain number of action sequences and there's like certain like points you have to hit, but like within that there's room to like put in something you know, like these accords or whatever, where it's like it's a super interesting idea, even if the movie doesn't have space to like really delve into details of like what that's about, and like what
Hmm.
that would mean, and like really live in the world with that for like the whole time. Like that's more like what Watchmen did, basically.
Yeah, because this is a series, this TV show. It can do that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
So anyway, it's like it's not really a criticism of the movie. It's really just a criticism. It's really just uh, it's really just like my own point of view
Hmm.
on like what I want from movies and stories and stuff.
Yeah, I got you.
Um, and for like what the movie's trying to do, it's of the three, like by far the most successful. It had like a lot of great moments and I think the character stuff was really strong, and I was just surprised how like the ultimate thing is like two Avengers fighting each other, like, and like it's a personal conflict, it isn't a plot conflict,
Yeah.
you
Hmm.
know um and I think all that stuff was really good. I just I need my Accord miniseries, that's all.
Yeah. Um, cool, man. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you see the interesting qualities of the movie because it's certainly, yeah, for a superhero movie, it's unique and it's trying to do a lot of things we haven't seen before. And I mean, just yeah, so many great action sequences. a lot of great character stuff. I mean, the whole stuff with Spider-Man coming out of nowhere,
Oh yeah, yeah.
that was, I think they should get a lot of credit for introducing this character. They had like two scenes before he has to show up and be Spider-Man, and they're, coming up against several versions of this character having been portrayed to various levels of success, and now we're going to see the first MCU Spider-Man, and yeah, I think they did a great job with the character. Tom Holland to me is the best Spider-Man. The way he plays it, and the way they write the character, and the age of the actor,
Mm-hmm.
and all that syncs up to me perfectly. Um, and Yeah, I just think they did such a great job with having, because it's Spider Man. He's an A list character. But so him coming in to all of these other Avengers that we've been seeing, be cool and badass for all these movies was hard to do, and that they did a good job of like integrating him and making him really interesting, and it helps when Tony Stark, escorts him into the plot, because everybody loves Tony. Everybody loves him. So having that personal connection, and even that whole idea, I really like that part of the movie where they decide, each team basically decides they need reinforcements. It's like, who do you know? I know this person. I get this idea. This for it's just like
Mm-hmm.
this thing we haven't seen before. Where like the
Sort of
Avengers
recruit.
now, yeah, now they gotta, like, who else out there is got some powers or can help, and so yeah, and it's interesting how the teams even get aligned, because like for most of those people, if the opposite person would have asked, they would have said, "Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'll fight for you," and that's what makes,
Oh, sorry.
that's what makes it really interesting when they are doing the fight scene at the airport. That for a lot of them, they're, like, when Ant-Man shows up, these are his heroes that he's like, I know who you are, and like, you guys are cool, and so it's like it's this weird thing where they're not enemies, they don't want to kill each other, but the plot needs them to fight, and the plot needs the fights to increase, right? And I just think, the way they wrote it is just so well done, because it feels very organic the way it happens.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's surprisingly convincing. The way they frame the conflict and stuff. Yeah,
Hmm.
I really enjoyed the Spider-Man stuff in the Avengers movies. Even though I hadn't seen any of that stuff previous,
Hmm.
um, I thought it came off very convincing. They got pathos just within that one appearance.
Hmm.
Yeah, I
Well,
thought they
yeah. Sorry, I was gonna say, and now you see, when you see Civil War, and you see Tony is the one who brought him into all of this, right? So,
yeah,
and they have that whole thing when they're in the car and he's trying to open the door, and Peter thinks he's trying to give him a hug, and
yeah,
then so that's like the first bookend, and then they in Endgame or Infinity War, when he's disappearing, he hugs him, it's like that extra weight on Tony's shoulders from losing this character that he literally personally escorted into all this nonsense. Yeah, they do a good job of piling it on.
yeah, yeah. I really enjoyed that scene where he goes to like recruit him, and that scene where they're just like talking in his room.
Hmm.
I thought it's just like a classic movie scene. But like yeah, it was much better than it needed to be because it was essentially functional in the context
Hmm.
of the movie. Um, and I think that is like one secret to magic in stuff like this. It's like taking something that's like essentially functional but doing something interesting with it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like making it actually something you care about instead of just like this is business we have to get through to get to the good
Hmm.
part.
Hmm.
Yeah, the
Well,
other thing. I really wanted to mention from the movie that I forgot to mention is this thing that happens at the airport battle with Don Cheadle,
Mm-hmm.
um, where like Vision is like firing
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
at the Falcon, I think, and but misses,
Yep.
and so he hits Don Cheadle, and then like they're like rushing to save him, and they don't.
Yeah.
They fail, and you just watch
Mm-hmm.
him fall to the ground on screen. I was like, "What the fuck?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not normal."
Yeah, that's what I mean about how they ratchet up the drama and the tension the whole time to where it's it starts with a polite disagreement to a strong disagreement to okay, now we're not, now we're dissolving it. Okay, now we're fighting each other. Okay, now we're punching. Okay, now we're blasting. Okay, and now we're really all out. And it just goes in these like very specific levels, and then it's like, oh shit, now we've gone too far. Roadies are hurt. Like, it reminds me like when your kids are fighting or playing. And you get lost in the thing you're doing, and then like something happens, and only in that thing happening do you realize how far you've gone, right? So like, yeah, when it's no, all the fun and games are over when no one can catch Rhodey. If someone could have caught him, hey, we're still fine at this level
Right.
of attacking each other. But like, oh shit, like Vision couldn't do it, Falcon couldn't catch him, Iron Man couldn't catch him. Well,
Yeah.
no one, like, so yeah, I love how it gives, like you said before, like they give the action meaning, so even when it's just, a martial arts or action sequence or whatever, like there's still usually some important meaning behind why they're fighting. And I think that is something that makes the movies extra, have a wider audience, along with the other things they do with the stories, where there's always some other genre of story that is being told. You know, um, like this spy element that the Captain America movies have. You know, um, the comedic elements of Guardians of the Galaxy. You know what I mean? Like, they're good about making sure that the character stuff is really good, that it's informed by the plot is informed by the characters' work, and that you always have at least one thing you can be liking, right? Like, oh, if I don't like this action sequence, but at least like I understand why they're fighting, or at least like I'm gonna get to the next plot point, or I like this style of genre that they're putting the story in. So they just have a lot going. There's always and I can't wait till you watch the DC stuff, because it's like night and day. Like, I think you're gonna be really like, however much you like Marvel, like now, I think when you see that, you'll even get a greater perspective on how good they are.
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah, and like he's like severely injured, and
hmm
they talk about it in the Avengers stuff too. Um, but like I think it's like again going back to my like wanting things to be realistic or something, like like with the danger and like the extreme shit that's happening all the time, like it makes sense that at some point like one of these characters would be like injured in a debilitating way, you
hmm
know. And so I was impressed that they like went that far, and the fact that it's Vision who does it of all
Yeah.
characters.
Well, one of the things that's interesting, if you watch the sequence, you'll notice that Vision, being one of the most powerful characters on the battlefield, stays out of the fights.
Yeah.
He only starts coming in towards the end of the fights, and he usually tries to slow people down or stop them peacefully. And not peacefully, but they're not like knocking them out. And so when he does start using his beam, he literally carves a line in the sand, and that is a point at which the sort of action and danger, sort of heightens again. or to the next level is like when they're running after they're who are they after they're trying to get to the plane in the hangar, and he like fires his beam in the line in the sand, and it's like, okay, if you cross this line, like we're gonna get some crazy stuff's gonna happen. And I feel like that was kind of a foreshadowing for because once Vision gets involved, yeah. And the other thing that's weird and I don't quite get, they don't do anything with it, but that thing where Tony's like, Vision, what happened, like how did you miss, like what, and he's like, I got distracted, and he's like, I think that was possible, he's like, I didn't either, and I'm like, okay, what does that mean, like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and we're not going to talk about that anymore, okay. um but listen, good for Falcon for dodging that. It was a cool
Mm-hmm.
move the way he dodged it. But yeah, it is a crazy. It's weird how dark it is. For
Yeah.
these to be your favorite characters, and the writers are not afraid to make them, you know, do things that they are going to regret. And yeah.
Yeah, like no, that's a weird thing about having watched WandaVision. The fact that it's so long. Those characters, in a way, I feel like I know as well as any characters in this whole Marvel world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because like I've kind of spent more time with them. I don't know. Maybe Captain America is now like in the running from watching these three movies, but
Yeah.
um like knowing Vision, it's like I know he's like gonna feel guilty about doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Like using his power and then like it's friendly fire too. That's the other thing that was interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's so rare that you see like friendly fire doing serious damage, when you have like all these superheroes around,
Yeah. Yeah.
throwing their powers. Like it makes sense that at a certain point it'd be like, oh shit, I just
Mm-hmm.
hit someone on our side.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know and so yeah, like on multiple levels that was a really cool moment.
Mm-hmm.
And it really changed the game of, yeah, what could have just been a pure escape action sequence of like, what if the Avengers all fight each other?
Yeah.
you know uh so they ended up getting real, emotion out of that. And um yeah, so I have to since I didn't mention that before. So that, I mean, I don't know, that it's a lot of good stuff in one movie. I do totally get why this one's you said this is your favorite of all the Marvel movies, like including the Avengers. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I totally get that. I totally get that. I I could see. I think if I actually watched them again and like thought about it more carefully, I could see myself thinking that, because I do think that this movie had probably the largest number of interesting moments all
Yeah.
in one movie.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
And it's really rewatchable too. That's the other thing. I think it beats out some of the Avengers movies because I think especially like Endgame and Infinity War aren't that rewatchable to me because the story is so specific and final. And
right.
it's yeah, I would rewatch Civil War more.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, it's yeah, it's the ultimate thing. So
Mm-hmm.
I kind of wonder where they're going after that. Like where are they going to take this thing? Like that was so extreme what they did. Like
Mm-hmm.
where do
Dude,
you
I
go
think they're
from
just
there?
get. I think they're just getting started. I think the next few movies look really crazy, and I think Doctor Strange 2 is gonna really change the game. It's supposed to be their first horror movie, and I think the idea of trying to do a Doctor Strange movie, um, with the type of visual effects they do, and they're specifically trying to make it horror, and Scarlet Witch is in it,
Mm-hmm.
who's also a reality bender. I just think they just
Yeah.
have a playground that's really, really huge, to really show some novel stuff. And I have my hopes pretty high that it'll really stand out. It'll be a different, a completely different type of MCU movie than we've ever seen. So I'm
Yeah.
really looking forward to that one. So I think, yeah,
I agree. I agree. That
I
is what I'm also looking forward to.
yeah, I'm curious what the overall arc of the next several phases are going to be. Since we had the first three be the sort of Infinity Saga, um, I'm curious what the next three phases are going to be about in like that big macro sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then what clues will we start seeing about that?
Mm-hmm.
And I know, some of the stuff with WandaVision, like even I think Agnes saying, "Oh, X person is coming," or I don't know, there was some foreshadowing about like um what happens when the Scarlet Witch arrives or something. Remember there was
Yeah.
something about that,
Yeah, yeah, sort of a
like
prophecy
yeah, if you
thing.
think I'm
Yeah.
bad, just wait till other person comes.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm assuming that might be part of it, and yeah, I'm curious for sure, like what's gonna happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, man. I mean, the fight sequence at the end with Iron Man and Captain Winter Soldier. I mean, it's brutal. It's crazy. It's weird to see them fighting that strongly against each other. But just the actual mechanics of the fights, I love. I think the Marvel's also really good about always showing us new stuff in the fight sequences. Obviously, like every movie, Iron Man has a new suit that has new powers. Every time we see Falcon, he's got a new suit with new tricks. Like they're always making sure that they're not repeating themselves on what they show us. And even Winter Soldier gets arm upgrades. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they're always doing that, and I think yeah, some of the fight sequences here really kind of showcase that. Obviously Ant Man going into Giant Man,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and then we get to see Vision's powers. We see for the first time his like the phasing, like I guess that was the first time, but see him phasing, and then I guess I don't know if it's quite clear if you don't really know what his power is, but his phasing, he basically can like change the density of his molecules, and so like
Oh, okay.
that's why he can phase through things, so he can make himself so less dense that he can phase through things, but he
Oh,
also can
okay.
make himself incredibly dense where he's like impenetrable. And so there's that one shot where he like goes into like a cannonball pose and
Mm-hmm.
like thrusts himself into Giant Man. And
Mm-hmm.
that's, I think we're supposed to assume he like increases density.
Densed up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
densed up. Yeah, and hit him with the density cannonball. But it's so I like seeing characters using their powers, especially those sort of esoteric ones like that you don't really see all the time
Mm-hmm.
in the classic fight scenes. And
Yeah, Ant-Man touches on that a little bit, the density thing. And they had a scene with Falcon where he could like see Ant-Man with his glasses. Like
mm-hmm.
I didn't even know that the glasses did anything but like protect his eyes. Like I I was
Yeah, he has I think that's a later upgrade where he's got a HUD in there. He's got a display like Iron Man or something.
yeah, yeah, yeah. He was just like tracking him easily. And like usually the thing with Ant-Man is like he goes small and you can't see him, or at
Mm-hmm.
least like you have to know where to look, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But like he
Yeah,
was like,
he completely. That's a thing about character matchups. Sometimes characters like their power is completely useless against another character.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, he basically just had to like disable the technology. Like that was the only way to fight. Like it's like if your shit's working, I
Yeah,
lose.
yeah, exactly.
So it's like, yeah, like I don't know. I was surprised that I was like, wow, that's like some powerful. That's like I didn't even know. I knew he had like some things, but it's like it made me realize I
Hmm.
didn't even know the full extent of like what his rig can do.
Hmm. Yeah,
Because
he has
you don't
a red.
really see everything.
Yeah, he's got Red Wing, which is the little drone that
Oh
can.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, in the comics, it was an actual Falcon that he had.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's I saw that. I think that's an interesting thing that like comics do sometimes. Like I felt that way with Ant-Man too, where it's like he's Ant-Man because he can make himself small, but then there's also like the mind controlling of the ants, which is
Mm-hmm.
like actually a separate thing. Like it's not even the same technology, but
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
they seem like they're related.
It's
But
almost like it's almost like you got to have both because he needs to be small enough to be able to talk to them,
yeah.
but obviously not really.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because Michael Douglas is doing it too, like full
Mm-hmm.
size.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's like, yeah, it's like a connection that isn't really there, but is. I don't know. It's
It's
almost
like
more of a
Iron Man
poetic
being a. It's
connection.
like Iron Man being a billionaire. It's just like an extra bonus that comes in handy.
Yeah, 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 yeah. But yeah, just the idea that like he had an actual falcon and then he becomes it's just like
Mm-hmm.
that's not related, right? But like it's sort of poetically related. I don't know. It's like it's strange.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like a quintessential comic book thing.
Yeah.
It's like somehow the superhero that they become was within them all along or something in some sort of poetic sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Spider Man. Yeah. Peter Parker becomes Spider Man because he's got the spider inside of him.
Yeah, something like that. Something like that. Is he actually supernatural in the Marvels in the MCU stuff? Like,
Yeah.
or is he
Yeah. He
just using
was.
technology?
No.
I
He
got a
was
little confused
bitten.
by that.
Yeah. He was bitten by a radioactive
It
spider.
did happen. Okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay. I thought
Mm-hmm.
maybe he was just good at gymnastics and he had
His
technology.
no, he's got super strength and speed and
Okay,
agility and all that stuff.
okay,
That's
okay.
why he's so. I mean, that's why he's so. And that's one of my favorite things about how they depict him is his his spidey sense, right? Like that idea that he has heightened senses. He can sense things coming before they kind of happen. It's almost this little, it's like a sixth sense almost. I guess it technically is a sixth sense, and
Mm-hmm.
um,
Literally.
literally a sixth
Yeah.
sense. And but it makes the way he fights and the way he responds to people throwing things at him or fighting him really fun to watch because a lot he's so fluid that he goes along with the action, the motion. And one of my favorite things, I remember this from the cartoon too, like when somebody chucks a huge thing at them, and he doesn't just like dodge it or block it. He will shoot it with his webs and change the momentum and throw it back at them.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always
Yeah,
loved that
yeah.
about Spider-Man, that like quick response type of fighting. And like Infinity War does a great job at that when he shows up to fight when they're trying to take Doctor Strange. The children
Mm-hmm.
of Thanos are there, and like the guy with the telekinesis like throws a billboard at Spider-Man. You're like, oh shit! Oh, he just got knocked in the face with the billboard. It's like, nope. He just stuck to it and flipped around 3 times on it, and now he's just gonna swing his web away. It was no big deal. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? It's just like he saw that coming. Not a big deal.
Right.
Um, uh, so yeah, I like a lot of how they depicted Spider-Man in Civil War. I thought it was a great like start to his character.
Yeah.
And even the whole thing where like he has that character moment with Steve Rogers, where like Steve's like, okay, I'm like this is a kid, I'm not gonna like whoop his ass, like
Mm-hmm.
because I am Captain America, like this isn't really gonna be a fight. And so Steve like knocks the like landing gear off of a plane and it lands on top of Spider-Man, so he's kind of holding them there. and and he's like, where are you from, kid? And he's like, you've got a heart. Where are you from? And he's like, Queens. He's like, yeah, I'm from Brooklyn. And just those little touches of
Mm-hmm.
like he recognizes like this is a good kid. He's in over his head. He doesn't really know what's going on
Yeah.
here, but like I'm not gonna hold this against him. Like this isn't. I need to go and to do grown folks business now.
Yeah.
But I like that moment.
Yeah, I get a little bit of like a Boone vibe with that, where it's like he gets pulled in this dangerous situation and
Hmm.
you know ends up being like sort of sacrificed. I mean, I guess he comes back in the end, but in the moment, like that's what it feels like.
Hmm. Well, then he gets his bell rung, and he's like, can't really hang because this is, that's the other thing too. It's really just the beginning of him being Spider-Man. So
Yeah,
he's not as seasoned as
fully
these other
developed.
characters,
Yeah,
and that's what I even love too. Like when they even start the fight, Tony's like, well, okay, do what I told you to do, and he's like, yep, just web him up. He didn't tell him to go toe to toe with the Avengers. He's like, just slow him down, web him up. You know what I mean? Buy some time. So I again, I like how they went in being forced into this confrontation, but still wanting to hold back and still wanting to get out of it in some way, but not really backing down from their position. And
right.
yeah, it's a delicate thing to kind of write that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I agree. Um, uh Another version of that thing that I thought of was like with Wanda. It's like, is she the Scarlet Witch because she has red hair, or does she have red hair because she's the Scarlet Witch?
Hmm. Yeah, I think the answer is yes.
Or none of the above? I don't know.
Hmm.
It's like, I don't know. It's like, but there was a destiny, right? That was a thing already. It's like it's in the book of whatever they called it.
Well, but it's like she's Scarlet Witch because the character was created in a comic and visually created to fit the name Scarlet Witch. So
Right.
probably would have red hair.
Yeah.
So it's like one of those things where it's like the name and the character and the design are being created, at the same time for
Right.
a lot. So yeah, it becomes you're Falcon. So okay, you're gonna have a Falcon,
Right.
and you're gonna have you know what I mean. It's like all these things just come with it
Yeah.
when you're creating those characters.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's certain logic to it, sort of visually, and when you
Hmm.
see it in a comic form, but like when you're telling a story, like the cause and effect gets a bit weird.
Yeah, well, that's why she's not even Scarlet Witch during any of this time in the
Right.
MCU. They don't even pretend
Yeah.
to. They don't really even like try to address it that way.
Yeah, when I saw that on the internet, it really threw me.
Hmm.
Uh, I was like, what's this? No one's ever said this. Like, I didn't even know this was a thing.
Hmm.
And then it's like revealed in WandaVision. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I guess that's why they wrote that there.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what's cool is they just have proven that they know how to deliver on long-term storytelling and long-term visions. So even to say, okay, we're not going to give her this code name, we're not going to call her Scarlet Witch for a while, and then when we do say the word Scarlet Witch, it's going to come with some meaning. It's going to,
Right.
new mythology or what that even means. Because if you thought she was a badass now,
Right.
like
Yeah.
she's just realizing what magic really
It's
is.
going to get really crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's learning the fundamentals, and now she's gonna go read the Darkhold. That's where I'm like, that was the other thing that makes me really excited about Doctor Strange too. Is it's not just the same Wanda, not even just Wanda from the Avengers movies, but the Wanda who created Westview,
Yeah.
Wanda.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
only that, it's Wanda who's been spending time reading the Darkhold. So
Right.
I'm like,
Yeah.
what is she
Yeah.
going to be
From the ending.
capable? Yeah, what is she going to be capable of? Uh, as they show us in Doctor Strange too.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, I get the projection thing now. Finally, that really confused me at the end.
What thing?
Um, the like, I forget what they call it, the something projection, where it's like you can like,
Oh, like an astral projection or something?
yeah, like your body can be over here, but like your spirit form can be like reading a book in the other room or
Yeah.
something. Like that really confused me when I saw it originally because I didn't know that that was a thing from Doctor Strange. But
Oh, gotcha.
when you watch Doctor Strange, it's like, oh, okay, 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 I get what they're going for there. It sort of
Mm-hmm.
makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's like you, if you really want to understand every little, they're very inclusive. I think you can get like the gist of most things, even if you come in like not having all the background. Like they try to like calibrate it in that way. But if you really want to understand every single moment, like you got to keep up with all the stuff.
You gotta watch it all.
It's all in there. I mean, Jesus.
Yeah.
I'm surprised how many things they weave together. And it's like you can't just be like, no, I'll just skip like this. Like that shit will come up.
Yeah.
And maybe it'll just be a scene, but like you'll be like, what's going on in this scene?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So they really, I don't know, they get you. And I feel like the other thing they do is like they'll have like a B character where it's like, you know um that's kind of how I feel about the Doctor Strange movie. Although I do enjoy Doctor Strange, it's like I really want to see the development of the stuff from WandaVision.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like in Winter Soldier, it's like maybe you don't like Captain America, but like there's a lot of Black Widow in the movie, you know, as
Mm-hmm.
sort of
Mm-hmm.
like as sort of a side, or even Falcon, you know.
Yeah.
Um so it's like I feel like in some of these movies that there's sort of a side character who gets like heavily featured but isn't the main character,
Mm-hmm.
and it's sort of an enticement. If you like that character, you can come watch this movie even if it's not about your favorite character, or I
Mm-hmm.
guess the other way around.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like you like the main character, but then you get exposed to this other character and maybe you now want to go see their movie. you know it's just such a vicious cycle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
They just want to trap you forever.
Yeah. Well, they just want to entertain you, and they do a good job of it. They do a great job.
You say entertainment, I say trap. I mean, tomato, tomato.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just like wallowing in the Marvel soup for a few days, I really get the sense of how it can just take over your entertainment life.
Mm-hmm. Well, the quality's so good. I mean, that's the problem. I mean, there's franchises and content that there's a lot of that the quality isn't great, but then there's this stuff,
Yeah,
where it's a lot of stuff and the bar is pretty high on the average, and then because of that, all you need is for the characters to be interesting, and if you've already seen some of it, then like you said, it's a vicious circle where like the more you watch, the more you like it because the more you're getting to know these characters, and then you just want to see more of it. then
yeah,
they and then you just want to see more, and then you want to see
more, more,
more, and,
more.
and more, and this is why comic books have been, you know, a hot commodity for generations.
Right.
Like, come on, more story, more story, more story.
Yeah, yeah. That's what I'm calling the trap. But
Mm-hmm.
you can also just look at that as the normal sort of way that you do a continuing story.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know in that way, like serialized TV shows are traps too. They want you to come back, they want to keep you in there, invested in the
Yeah.
thing.
But it's mutual. We want to be there too. I think when it's really good, you you are willing to take the trap. It's a trap you
Mm-hmm.
want to be in.
Yeah, 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 sure, sure, sure. So yeah, It's a trap that I walk into willingly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, if it wasn't enjoyable, I definitely wouldn't bother watching any of them. It's just such a machine, you know. I'm sort of in awe of the scale.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it just feels like it's bigger than any of us, and soon there won't be anything but Marvel. I don't know. It's so all encompassing. Feels like they could just take over everything.
But there's so many franchises like this that are big, man. Like, and Disney has most of them.
Of course they do.
But yeah, I think Marvel is, um, yeah, it's a lot. It's and then the TV shows. I think it's only going to get bigger, you know. But if you look at like Star Wars, I just think like, in terms of expecting quality from movies, you don't expect them to be that great. The new ones. Um,
Yeah, I haven't
and
seen any of the new ones, but
yeah, I wouldn't
I'm not
recommend
even the
any of
world's
them.
biggest fan of the old ones, even though they're
Hmm.
obviously like iconic. I can't deny their impact on culture and so on. And they do have moments that I enjoy, but yeah, I think I'd rather watch any of these Marvel movies.
Hmm.
Quite frankly, I don't think there's any of them that I didn't sort of enjoy more in a way than even the classic Star Wars movies, and I haven't seen the new ones. I
Hmm.
only saw two of the mid prequels,
Gotcha.
and those weren't great either. They were probably worse than the old ones. So, like, I think the old ones are the good ones, but yeah, I
Hmm.
don't know. They did reference it though. They referenced Empire Strikes Back with the giant Ant Man, um, with
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah,
uh,
Peter Parker
Peter
thinks
Parker doing the wraparound with the
the
rope. It was very explicit, and actually, there's some flying around that happens in something that I watched. Is it Guardians of the Galaxy or is it Captain Marvel? I don't know. They're all just running together. Anyway, where they're like flying around through canyons. Really reminded me of Star Wars as well. I think Star Wars is just influential in general on any kind of sci-fi
hmm.
action thing because it was so
But and it's
successful.
so funny how much they stole from Star Wars. You know what I mean? Like, have you seen those videos of like those early serials that George Lucas just completely stole scenes
Oh yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
shots
yeah.
from? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean that was the idea. Like that was sort of the genesis of the thing. It was like I want to bring these serials to a movie form.
Hmm.
Like and yeah, that just ended up being very appealing apparently.
Yeah, I mean, but not like adapting it, but just like literally stealing it. Like literal sequences are like line for line out of other movies, and it's just like,
Oh, other movies. Sorry,
yeah,
I thought you were just
yeah.
talking about from like serial comics or something.
No, there's actual like some of the
Oh, you talking about the
sequences
Kurosawa
in
stuff?
there's some of that, but there like the whole run on the Death Star
Oh, mm-hmm.
is out of a whole other movie.
Oh, what movie is
It's
that?
a it's like a World War I movie
Oh, okay.
and
Okay.
or something, and it's like I'll have to find the link, but it's like shot for shot, line for line, the same exact thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's weird. It's
So
weird to
he's doing like
see.
a Tarantino-ish thing, I guess.
Meaning what?
Uh, Meaning he was taking a scene from another movie and recreating it,
Oh,
basically.
I see it more as like a form of plagiarism
Well, people said
when
that about Tarantino too.
yeah, I think when people know what it's from and you don't tell them, that's fine. If people don't know what it's from and you don't tell them, I think that's when it becomes weird.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the distinction in my head. At the time,
Yeah.
it wasn't clear that these awesome sequences came from something else.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean that was definitely true for some of especially Reservoir Dogs. I think like the plot and many of the sequences and shots are straight out of this movie,
Mm-hmm.
Hong
Mm-hmm.
Kong action movie. I forget what it's called. Anyway, just to say, that's why that reminded me of that, because like it is there's a lot of theft there, but like he also like put a signature on it, you know. Um, like there's stuff in it that isn't in the movie he copied from, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I think like when that's done well, it's like you steal this thing, but like, you know, what you surround it with gives it, you know, gives the overall thing its own personality. So, you know, um, if the rest of the movie isn't like the World War I movie, then it would be like more like the Quentin Tarantino thing, basically. You know, but if the whole World War I movie is about like, you know, the same thing as Star Wars, then that would be weird.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, cool, man. Anything else on Winter on Civil War?
Uh, I think I said everything. I mean, I might have forgot something, but yeah, no, I think that's it. It's yeah, very good. Thumbs up. I think this you know, like I said, I feel like I'm not familiar enough to really like have a firm ranking in my mind, but this is definitely one of the better ones that I watched. So, I
Nice.
definitely agree with you on that level. Like it's it's way better than I expected, and way better than I think it needed to be to like, you
Mm-hmm.
know, deliver the box office.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah,
know,
I
like I
think.
think about like Freddy versus Jason, you know, um, which I feel like is like sort of in this realm of like, let's put these franchises together. Let's sort of have these like big characters like fight, you know,
Mm-hmm.
as a spectacle, you know. Um, but they did it in a way where I actually cared about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and
So what Freddie and Jason needed was more chords, and it needed a plot where Freddie and Jason had a philosophical disagreement about some slasher accords and the rules by which slashers will be governed.
mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, more accords. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how you really do that. I think with horror, like it doesn't really work very well in general. I don't know if there is a story. Um, Accords for slashers. I mean, hey, I'll believe it when I see it. I'd love to see it. I'm on board.
yeah, maybe that's the movie. You know, in a world with slashers, they have to be regulated, and yeah.
I mean, the funny thing about it's like, yeah, it's yeah. I don't know. It feels like a farce, but I'd love to see what someone try that.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Freddie, will you sign this accord?
He's like, no.
Yeah, it's like okay.
Yeah,
The end.
it's a short movie,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know
but
why
it
they
has
haven't
lots of
made that
accords.
yet. I think we've all learned that I really like Accords.
Honda Accords,
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
accordions,
yeah. That's a good one. That's a good one.
acorns. Is that close enough?
That's pretty close. That's pretty close.
Cool. Well, I'm glad you are catching up on the MCU. I think you've gone from zero to Iron Man
A
level.
lot.
yeah, I think I'm curious when you go see the original Iron Man movies, and because those have their own thing. I like them in a different way than I do the Captain America ones, and then I
Hmm.
think the Thor movies are probably the worst three in terms of there's some okay stuff throughout the first two. I think Ragnarok is pretty solid overall.
Yeah, I really
Uh,
enjoyed that one.
yeah, they had to find a different. I think that's a character where he changed
Yeah,
over time.
you could see it in the
The
Avengers
type of
movies.
the type of scenes he's good in, and that
Yeah,
the audience like really likes him to be in. And I
yeah,
think that the actor wants to be in. He wants more
definitely.
comedy. That's why we get Fat Thor.
Yep.
And I think yeah, that early Thor stuff where he was the classic God of Thunder and very English actor, like or you know what I mean, like very
Yeah,
like Victorian sounding, like very like
yeah.
um, the old school like
Classic
idea.
British Scandinavian god
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, and then he loosened up.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
got like another interesting character. He became like a surfer god.
Hmm.
Thor the surfer of what am I trying to say? The god of surf and thunder or something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. It just worked better, and yeah, it's sort of like adapting the character to the actor's strengths, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, in some cases, like with Robert Downey Jr., like they're dialed in right away to the thing
Mm-hmm.
because like it fits his style like really well, that character. But yeah, I think the way Thor was written, it's I don't know, it's a hard thing to really pull off. I definitely liked the way they developed that
Mm-hmm.
character, and by the time it got to Ragnarok, like to me that movie was super entertaining. I really enjoyed it. I can't complain.
I think it has a lot to do with the plot of the first two movies, because I think it's when he's in Asgard and he's the king, the prince,
Mm-hmm.
and who's gonna get the throne. Like the plot is demanding that the character be that way. So I
Mm-hmm.
think once he gets past that stuff,
Yeah, it's like
then
origin
he's
story stuff.
free. Yeah, he's free to like be a different, character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Decide who he wants to be instead of just like being forced to act this particular role
Mm-hmm.
that he's like born into.
Yeah. Cool. Well, yeah. Glad you are catching up on all this stuff. Yeah, you're like learning the pop culture. It's awesome. This is what the
Yeah,
kiddos have
yeah,
been like
yeah.
talking about. Now you see what all the fuss has been about.
Oh man, I've seen people talk about it and I'm like, hey, I know that thing.
That's a
I
thing
know
right
what you
now.
mean. It's
Nice.
crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy because yeah, I've just been like out of that bubble for so long. I mean, until this year, I guess. That's when WandaVision came on, right? Like, yeah, that was the whole turning point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think WandaVision is proof that like Marvel can encompass like some really crazy shit.
Oh yeah. Nothing's off
Um,
limits. Anything's possible.
the fact that they did that show like uh is yeah, I don't know. It makes me pretty hopeful um for what they can do in the future, and also like it gave me encouragement to give this older stuff a chance.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that was a good bridge, I think.
Yeah.
Because it's like in my wheelhouse. It starts off with this really off kilter, like
Mm-hmm.
sitcom parody, bizarre thing that's like like super weird. And like witch lore and stuff, and it's like, okay, like I'm so on board for that. And then it's like, but once you've accepted that, it's like, okay, it gives me a bridge into the other things they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think the Avengers movies kind of did that too in a way because they introduced like a lot of characters, and so you can really like get a sense of the breadth of what they have to offer.
Yeah.
It's like a buffet of like Marvel characters.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, yeah, it's it's fun to join the party. It is something that I'm glad it doesn't just feel like homework. It doesn't just feel like, oh, I can like hold a conversation at a cocktail party or something.
Say it
Um,
again.
I'm glad it doesn't just feel like I'm doing this so I can like hold a conversation at a cocktail party.
Oh, gotcha. Mm-hmm.
Like it is enjoyable in its own right.
Mm-hmm. Oh, cocktail party where they're talking about the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of
Do they
those.
not do that? I don't know. I don't know that I've even ever been to a cocktail party. I mean, I've been to a party where there's cocktails, but I feel like
Mm-hmm.
cocktail party has a connotation that
Mm-hmm.
I've never
I think
quite.
if you had been to a cocktail party, you would know if you've been to a cocktail
Yeah,
party.
yeah. I think you're right about
That's the one thing I know about cocktail parties.
that. But yeah, it's like like you stay up with like whatever news or something just to like be able to like or sports or like whatever people do so you can like have a conversation about it.
Mm-hmm.
um and that's a cool side benefit. But yeah, I mean it's worth podcasting though, so like
Yeah.
there's got to be something there.
Yeah, man. I yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing what where they go from here. But what's next on your list to watch?
Well, I mean, at this point, it's basically going to be Black Widow, which is the current one that's out. Um, uh, if you mean aside from that, I'm not actually sure.
Okay,
I
gotcha.
haven't, I haven't settled on the specific thing to go to next. Like, there was a specific plan, and that plan has been completed, and yeah, so now it's just sort of yeah, whatever seems interesting, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm vaguely interested in most of the other things that I haven't seen, so yeah, it'll just be a matter of time. But yeah, it's been fun living in the Marvel world. It's its own like universe, as they say.
They literally say that.
They literally say
Okay, cool. Well, thanks everybody for joining us, and I think we'll be back with some more MCU talk when Justin sees some more movies slash TV
that.
shows.
Indeed.
Yeah, there's Loki to talk about.
Have you seen that?
I've seen that. There's Falcon
Okay.
and Winter Soldier if you're interested in
Mm-hmm.
watching that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and yeah, you got the Iron Man movies. You've got some
Mm-hmm.
Thor movies to watch,
Yeah.
and
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man movies to watch.
Yeah.
Um,
There's also like all those like ancillary Marvel shows
yeah,
that I'm vaguely interested in, like Agents of Shield and things of that ilk.
yeah. They just officially said that isn't canon, but I really, 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 really liked Agents of
They
Shield.
just officially said that isn't canon.
Yeah,
Interesting.
basically like
Like they
anything
fucked up in
before.
there somewhere.
Well,
I
canon
love it. Now I
for
really want to watch it.
sorry, canon for the MCU, like specifically. So
Right,
like
right, right.
yeah, so like anything before any show before WandaVision, they're saying isn't explicitly canon. But
Okay.
I don't know anything that's in there that really is screwy.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
but
Maybe it's just
maybe
more that it's not on Disney Plus, so they don't
yeah,
want to
I
like.
think it's yeah, and I think it's they want to be officially free from. It could be some of the stuff they're working on now might conflict,
Mm-hmm.
right? Some
Conflict
stuff
with
we
something
haven't seen
from.
yet, so.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I think
Yeah.
Agents of Shield is worth watching. I
Okay.
really
Yeah,
liked it.
yeah. That's something I was seriously thinking about, and
Yeah, yeah, it's
I
fun.
enjoy TV shows about shit, so
It's definitely about some shit.
something that's like set in the and there is like quite a bit of Shield stuff,
Yeah,
especially in Winter Soldier.
I think when you've seen the movie, the all the movies that deal with Shield stuff, like because when Agents of Shield came on, I didn't care about Shield at all,
Mm-hmm.
and or Coulson really, and
Mm-hmm.
so when I went to actually watch the show, I actually cared at that point.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this is interesting to me now. I actually care what's happening, and then yeah, the show's pretty good.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Definitely on that Alias vibe, that like
Mm-hmm.
really good like action
That's what it seemed
adventure
like.
thriller
Yeah.
shows. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Which like
Mhm.
the Captain America stuff is already like a little bit in that direction, but
Mhm.
with the
Mhm.
TV show, I think they can, yeah,
Yeah,
fully
I
do
might check out
things.
Agent Carter. I didn't really
Mm-hmm.
care about watching her show, but it's probably pretty enjoyable. I think it was only one season too, so.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's fairly short, but yeah, I wouldn't have cared about it before either. But I do feel like, from what I've seen, there's probably potential there
Mhm.
for something interesting, and just the fact that they would do that, I don't know. It's again, it's a trap.
Mhm.
It will envelop us all.
And we will want more. Uh, yeah. So we can also podcast about Captain Marvel. You saw
Oh
that.
yeah, 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 yeah. I just watched. There's Shield stuff in there too.
Mhm. Yep.
Some
Well, we
like older
see.
Shield stuff.
Yeah, we get the reveal of Fury where he lost his eye.
Oh my god. Oh my
Mhm.
god, that was such a trolling. Oh my god, that was so ridiculous. The whole thing
Mhm.
with the cat and like
Not a cap.
it's a flirkin. Like okay, oh my god, and it like it vomits the Tesseract. Sorry to spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen Captain Marvel, but that shit was ridiculous. I enjoyed that. It was fun.
Yeah.
And I appreciated it way more. Like you can see that they released it later because it's like, they're like setting up things from earlier.
Yes. Yep. He's
So
like,
it's
I
like
have an idea. The Avengers Initiative.
exactly, exactly. And it's like his eye gets hurt. And it's like, how's your eye? Oh, it's fine, no problem.
Yeah.
It's a mild injury. They really, they really, they really plan with the audience's expectations.
Mhm.
I appreciate, and also the Captain Marvel stuff was relevant to WandaVision with the Monica Rambeau part.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I appreciated that more because I had seen WandaVision.
Mhm.
So it's like, oh, I know what this ties into. I kind of have some idea what the context is here. Again, they will take your soul.
But only with consent, because you don't have to watch.
Yeah, no, I
You're
mean,
you're like a guy who goes to a buffet and complains there's too much food.
well, yeah, yeah, totally.
You're like they want me to eat all this.
Yeah,
They want me to be really satisfied. How dare they?
that
I'm
is,
so
yes.
suspicious of how much they're catering to me.
That's me. That's me. Exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly. I can feel them beckoning me with all of these like trays of shit, and I'm
Hmm.
just like, it's like I do want to watch it, but I also feel you like, like directing me towards,
Hmm.
my, I don't know, what do they have?
Desires.
Yeah, my waffles or something, like, I don't know.
My waffles.
Yeah, it's just waffles. I don't know. I was trying
Yeah.
to think of something you have like in a buffet situation.
Well, now I want waffles in a right now situation.
Waffles are good anytime. That's one
You
of
know,
the
that's one
best
of
things about
my
waffles.
weaknesses. If I see pizza, I want pizza.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's just a thing in my brain if I'm watching a show and like I don't want pizza at all, and then on screen is pizza, I immediately I'm like, I need pizza right now.
Yeah,
It has to happen.
yeah, yeah. I think there actually was a sponsorship, but I used to really suspect that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles of like partnering with Big Pizza to like make
Mm-hmm.
kids like beg their parents to
Mm-hmm.
buy pizza.
I mean, pizza was already cool, and then the
Yeah,
turtles eat it. It's come
yeah,
on, now I want more pizza.
yeah. It's like extra. Yeah, like oh, pizza's like the
Yeah,
thing. Like I
yeah.
want
Because
the pizza.
if you want to be like a Ninja Turtle, you should eat
Yeah,
pizza, right?
yeah. Exactly,
Yeah. Like
exactly.
it's the opposite of what happened with Popeye of like, oh, you want to be strong, eat spinach,
Mm-hmm.
and kids are like, I don't want to be that. I don't want to be strong that
Yeah, no
badly.
thanks.
Yeah, yeah, no, no,
I'm not getting to the finish.
no. Okay, cool. Well, we'll be back soon with some more MCU and possibly some DCU stuff if you get over there and check out how not to make superhero movies.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see for a contrast. So yeah, someday I'll watch those. We could like talk about them not being good or something.
Mm-hmm.
Future plans. Hey,
All right, until next time. See
I
you
bid
later.
you a cordial farewell.
Thanks, Classic Thor.
All right, bye everybody.